Good evening. I now call to order the May 28th, 2025 regular City Council meeting of the City of Calabasas. Tonight I'm joined by Mayor Pro Tem James Bazagian, Council members Albrecht, Shapiro, and Weintraub, as well as city staff. If you'd like to provide public comment, please complete a speaker card. They can be found in the back of the room, and give that to our city clerk. Members of the public who need hearing assistance can also request a device from our city clerk. We're going to begin tonight with our Pledge of Allegiance, which is going to be led by Girl Scout Troop 2146.
May I please have your attention for our flag ceremony? Please stand for the presentation of the colors. Color guard, attention. Color guard, advance. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. Color guard, post the colors. Color guard, salute the colors. Color guard, dismiss.
Chess, grab me, Julie, grab me. Girls, come here.
Smoking cigarettes in the parking lot. What?
Stand up behind. I think it makes it better.
You guys want to do right up there? Some of them?
Come on, squeeze in.
Okay. All right, you guys ready? Face me. Face me. Okay, ready. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right, that's the best part of every city council meeting. It's all downhill from here. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Albrecht, seconded by Councilmember Weintraub. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Closed session. We did meet in closed session. City Attorney, do you have something to report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. We did meet in closed session to discuss all the items listed on the closed session agenda, items 1 through 4, and no reportable action was taken on any of those items.
Thank you very much. So I think you guys are all here for the budget, right? No, I think you're here for some presentations we have this evening. We have a couple, so we're going to start off with the retirement of Jennifer Hernandez. It is always an honor to recognize our dedicated staff. Tonight we have 2 upcoming retirements to celebrate. First, I'd like to read some words written by our Community Services Department for Recreation Supervisor Jennifer Hernandez. Today we celebrate the retirement of Jennifer Hernandez, a remarkable team member whose legacy of service, heart, and leadership will leave a lasting imprint on the city of Calabasas. Jennifer began her journey with the city 15 years ago at De Anza Park, where she quickly distinguished herself through her professionalism, reliability, and quiet determination. Her passion for community services was clear from the very start, and she continually sought out ways to grow, contribute, and make a difference. Over the years, Jennifer rose through the ranks, taking on new challenges and always leading with grace, humor, and a sincere desire to serve others. At the Calabasas Senior Center, she found her true calling, creating meaningful programs, building lasting relationships, and ensuring our senior community felt supported, engaged, and valued. Her warmth and empathy made the Senior Center not just a facility, but a home. As Recreation Supervisor, Jennifer led with vision and compassion. She brought out the best in her team, always ready with a solution, a kind word, or a much-needed laugh. Her presence uplifted everyone around her, and her influence will be felt long after she steps away. Jennifer, your dedication, creativity, and spirit have made Calabasas a better place. While we are sad to see you go, we are excited for you to embrace this next chapter. On behalf of the entire city, thank you for everything. You will always be part of the Calabasas family. Jennifer, thank you again. Would you like to come up to the podium so that we can present? You guys want to come up with me?
One person over here on the side. Yeah, just so you can sit down a bit. All right. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
At this point, I would like to invite my council members to share some remarks. We'll begin with Councilmember Weintraub.
Just wanted to say thank you for everything that you've done for the city in all of the different capacities. You've always been such a pleasure to work with, and I know that not only do your coworkers love working with you, but the community does as well. And I know, especially at our wonderful senior center, but you're going to be greatly missed, and just thank you for everything and your commitment to the city. It's definitely been noticed all of these years, so thank you.
Jennifer, you have embodied what is everything good about the city and about our recreation department. I know everyone just adores you and speaks very highly of you, the residents, the staff, and I'm going to miss you very much. You were a great sounding board for all my stories. I kind of went into her office and she was a captive audience, so I'm not sure how much she enjoyed it, but we will miss you, and we do hope that you come back and visit us from time to time, because it really was a pleasure working with you.
Councilmember Albert.
Jennifer, I haven't known you as long as most people have, but in the short time that I did, there's no superlatives or adjectives left. So many has been spoken for already. But I did try to put together some words that I thought were appropriate, and I was thinking about it today. And one is professional skills. This, with your wonderful personality, that was very important. Your good nature, very welcoming personality, and your leadership, very driven leadership. So we all appreciate it, and you're a great model for whoever comes to follow. Thank you.
Councilmember Shapiro.
Thank you, Jennifer. All I can say is it seemed like yesterday I was saying, congratulations, you're going to take over the senior center for the next 10 years. Boy, time flies fast. You have been incredible, as has already been mentioned, in every aspect, whatever work you're doing for the city or have been doing. There's always a smile, always positive, always desire to get things done and do them properly and make sure the community is happy and staff is also properly taken care of and doing the right thing. And it's just been a pleasure to work with you, or support in anything you are doing for the city, and you will be missed tremendously, not just by the seniors, but by the entire community, and wish you only the best. Thank you.
And I'll just wrap it up, Jennifer, by saying, I don't think I've ever seen you not smile. And, that's infectious, and we love that. And I think that's why you've left such a lasting impression on everyone around you. We're going to miss you, but congratulations on your retirement. And we hope you're not a stranger to the Calabasas community. With that, we have a few members of the public, I think, that wanted to make a comment or two. So I'm going to read off a couple of names, and you'll have to share the podium with them. I'm sure they'd be glad to stand next to you. We'll start with the first card I have here is for Laura Weischer.
Hi, Jennifer. I'm Laura Weishar. I'm a Calabasas resident for 12 years now. And it's my pleasure to come here and to honor Jennifer and to say how much we appreciated your vivaciousness and your true feeling of caring and wanting to make things better. And we feel a little guilty because you saw how happy we were all in being retired. And I think that that may have given you the idea to come and join us. So we will miss you, but we welcome you with open arms.
Our next speaker is Carol Washburn.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Jennifer, on behalf of the Savvy Seniors, I want to express our sincere appreciation for your exceptional contributions to the Calabasas Senior Center. We are especially grateful for your willingness to collaborate with us, share your insights, and lead with commitment, innovation, and consistent support. You have left a positive impact on our advisory board, and you know our 8 hardworking committees and their members, thereby helping us achieve many of our program goals. We appreciate and thank you for your kindness, your loyalty, and wish you and your husband, Louis, a happy, relaxing, and a very joyful retirement. We're going to miss you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we have one more speaker, and it's Amy Haber. Oh, that is 5 and 6. You want to do them together? Sure. Okay. Jennifer, this is your moment if you'd like to share anything with us.
Certainly. I would like to say thank you to everyone, to the community, to the council, to the staff. For every moment, it's been an absolute pleasure to work here. There is a lot of smiles, you're not wrong. I look back on photos just today. I was looking through a book that was provided to me for my retirement and seeing all the fun things that we've done over the years and just all the joy in being able to create things for this community. It's just absolutely amazing, and I can't say enough about how positive my experience has been, and I'm just so grateful for every moment. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to read some words written by our Public Works Department in honor of the Public Works Superintendent, Luis Hernandez. We are pleased to honor someone who has quietly but powerfully shaped the foundation of our community. Luis Hernandez, who is retiring after over 28 years of dedicated service to the city, started his service in 1997 as a consultant and became a full-time employee in 2003. Over the course of his career, Luis has been determined yet flexible, a problem solver, and above all, a public servant who serves with humility and dedication. From inspecting large development projects to delivering crucial CIP projects, to clearing mudslides in a driving rain, to managing the behind-the-scenes operations most people never think twice about, Louis has led with integrity, expertise, and a deep sense of responsibility to this city. Many may not realize that public works is often about being the first to arrive and the last to leave. It's about answering emergency calls in the middle of the night, fixing potholes in 100-degree heat, and clearing clogged storm drains in the rain. It's about ensuring infrastructure works so well, no one notices it at all. Louis exemplified and embodied this every day and did it all humbly with steadfast commitment and exceptional leadership. Louis's incredible tenure is not just about operational success, but the relationships he built with his crews in the field, with fellow employees and city leaders, with contractors, and with the residents who benefited from his work. Louis is respected by the entire city organization for his unwavering commitment to teamwork, which was reflected through those who worked around him. Louis inspired his team to always say yes and always find a way to deliver, and Louis always delivered. And let's not forget the patience of his family who stood by long hours, late nights, and countless phone calls that interrupted dinners and weekends. Today we thank them too. We wish you many restful mornings, long coffee breaks, and only the kind of projects that involve fast cars, dirt roads, traveling, or spending time with loved ones. Congratulations on your well-earned retirement, Louis. You've more than earned it. Please come join us at the podium.
Yeah, I'm Lois from the senior center, but I didn't, it's their husband and wife, I didn't want to. Okay.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
They said I should count, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, at this time, we're going to entertain a few comments from our council again. I'll start on the other side this time with Council Member Albrecht. Oh, he's getting ready. Should we start with Council Member Shapiro then?
Well, Louis, there's so much we could say. 1 out of 2 of you should have stayed. I mean, both family members shouldn't retire at the same time. What a family. What service to our community, to our city. It's been truly a pleasure knowing you and having you work in the city. I had the privilege of working on the emergency preparedness organization and committee while we had one with various council members, Councilmember Weintraub recently working. And when the city has emergencies, whether it's fire or rain or potential rock slide or mudslide or road issues, whatever it is, while we all are very concerned and we're, as a council, at a very heightened level, there's always been a sense of calm knowing you are out there, and you are, and you were out there 24/7 doing whatever was necessary in the correct manner, not with drama, not with fanfare, but just because it was the right thing to do. You and your the entire staff were out there. It wasn't just you, but always knowing you were in charge and you were doing such great work out there gave me and all of us in the city a sense of calm, that we didn't have to worry, that it was taken care of. And you have been incredible. You will be sorely missed. It's a huge hole. That's 2 big holes now in the city left by your family's retirement, you both. But thank you for everything you've done, and wishing you the best in retirement. If you're bored, come back, and I'm sure we can find something for you. Thank you.
Councilmember Albert?
That's very true. That's very true. Leave your forwarding phone number. Louise, you are the epitome of what every city would love to have. Your consistency, your work ethic, your help with professional development for your team to create a great team around you. And there is truly, just like Councilmember Shapiro said, a certain calmness about knowing that when you're there, somehow it'll be rectified, and normally sooner than later. As an exemplified all those issues we had on Mulholland a year or 2 ago, when we had holes in the street and schools was open, and you were there all the time. It didn't matter, rain, shine, lightning, or otherwise. So I hope you're open for questions when they come your way. How do we do this? How do we do that? But you'll be missed. So thank you so much, and have fun, happy adventures in your retirement with you and Jennifer.
Just wanted to start by saying thank you for everything. I know it's been said, but every text that we would send to Kindon, he'd be like, Lewis is on it. And sometimes you were already there, no matter the time of day. And we've gone through so many natural disasters, and I truly believe that the city fared as well as we did because of the work from you and your team. So there's really not enough gratitude that we can express to you, because it's not everything you were doing, early hours, late evenings, and just always helping to keep this community safe. It's a huge loss, and just wishing you and Jennifer the best. And I just hope you know how appreciative we are for everything that you've done to help keep our community safe. So thank you so much.
Lewis, thank you for all of your leadership and what you've done in your service for the city. There's probably very few people, if any, at City Hall on our staff who know just every little aspect of the city and the background, every corner of the city, and how everything works. And it's very hard to get someone as loyal to the city as you have been, and it's really irreplaceable. I'll share with you, I was speaking with Lewis earlier today, and we figured out that aside from myself, no one's been around longer. Like when you came here, I was the only one here who's still around at City Hall. That's how long Lewis has been here. And that's only by a matter of months, by the way. I've enjoyed all of your knowledge and everything you've done to help, preserve the city's background and integrity. And as has been said before, we rely upon you so much in emergencies and in keeping the infrastructure of the city together. I wish you well in your retirement. And again, like your wife, I hope that you do come back and visit us from time to time, and keep in touch.
And I don't want to keep this going, but I have to say that when I heard in the beginning that Lewis has got this, I thought that was an acronym for a public works team. Because it was probably a year after I was here that I actually met you for the first time. I'm like, oh, that's Lewis. I thought that was Lewis, But obviously your team is here to support you tonight. We're all happy that you've had this opportunity to retire. We're even happier for the years of service that you put in, and very grateful for your time. And so congratulations on your retirement. We do have a speaker here for this evening. Amy, would you like to come up and say a couple of words?
Good evening, Chair and council members. I may be in a little bit of hot water because they made me swear that I wouldn't throw any special event or any kind of soiree in their honor. So right now, I am exercising my constitutional right. And don't make me call Cole. If you don't know, Cole is their son, and last Friday, he graduated from Pepperdine with his law degree and is currently going for the bar. So. So here I stand. And if you will indulge me tonight, I wanted to share a story that I think really captures the Hernandezes perfectly. In 2016, I stepped away from running the special events for the city exclusively and started my role as a facility supervisor at Danza Park. I had known Jen and Louis throughout the years as colleagues, but had never really gotten to know them on a personal level. And now I was working side by side with Jennifer on a daily basis. Shortly after I started there, my mom was diagnosed with metastasized breast cancer, and it wasn't long before it was necessary for me to share that devastating news with my team. I would be taking a great deal of time off of work to be with her. No one was more supportive than Jennifer, and I will not forget what she said to me the day I told her. She gave me a hug and said, "Do you want me to send Louis to the blood bank to donate some blood?" True story. Not what I was expecting. Jen, did you realize you were just offering your husband's blood and didn't even ask him? I share this story because it's actually rather layered and a great example of Jen and Louis's character, as well as their partnership. You see, what I didn't know at the time was that Louis is considered a universal blood donor. He has the type of blood that is compatible with anyone. And I, for one, now believe that he was predisposed by the universe to lead a life of service to others. Giving is literally constructed in his DNA, and he has shouldered that responsibility with warmth and compassion every day while working here in Calabasas. That story is also telling because Jen didn't call him and ask him whether he wanted to donate. But she didn't have to. She already knew. You see, these two have been together for decades. These two found each other in high school and never looked back. And it is only fitting that today they are walking into their third chapter as a pair. Jen is Louis's perfect mate, don't you say otherwise. I got you, girl. Like him, she is built for service. She is a constant champion and crusader for those in need, and there is not an animal or human or crow. That's an inside story. She wouldn't swim upstream in a level 5 rapid just to help. She epitomizes kindness and has her own storied career here in Calabasas that brings kindness to life through creative programs, events, and services. Tonight, I want to join you as we salute these two and say thank you for imprinting on us the importance of caring. Thank you for sharing your time, your skills, and your heart. You have created a gold standard by which we will all do well to follow. Congratulations, Jen and Louis.
Louis, before we give you the microphone, I think the city manager wants to say a word.
Louis, Jennifer, I just wanted to say thank you. I think as everybody else has already mentioned, you are the type of employees that any organization would want, but not just as employees, you're the type of humans that people want to be friends with, they want to raise their kids with. They're the type of people that we can trust, and those are few and far between. I look around the room, and there's many that aren't here, but I think one of your lasting legacy for both of you is also how you've mentored people over the years, whether those are volunteers, part-time employees, other employees, and that mentorship will outlast you. It won't replace you. That's not what I'm saying, but that mentorship of what you've contributed to the learning and the growth of other employees is just amazing. So we appreciate that. We thank you. Jennifer, I know that Lewis's job required him to leave at all hours of the night. I think, Lewis, you and I ran into each other, I think it was the night of the slide, the water line break on Thousand Oaks, and mud was coming down on 1,000 Oaks, and we were out there at 2 o'clock in the morning. But I couldn't help but think of Jennifer supporting that over and over and over and over again, and just how hard that is, but how much we appreciated it to make it possible for Lewis to do that. So thank you to both of you. We honor you, and we appreciate you, and we wish you the best. So thank you.
Well, I don't have much to say. I did when I came up here, but how do I beat that? It's been 28 years in a blink of an eye. Met a lot of great people, staff, council, the residents, and I couldn't do it without that support of all of you. And it really does make a difference. Our team, our Public Works team, is really they make all of our jobs easy. Makes my job easy. I couldn't have done it without them. A lot of great staff members here, past and present. That it's an honor to work with them, and having worked with them, in our team we kind of call them the greats. These people that kind of left a mark. And I always talk to them and say, in everything you do, try and think of these people that went above and beyond, who didn't just do their job here that they were expected to do, but also help the city grow and develop, new policies, procedures, new ways of doing things. As the city's young, to try to make things work better. So we always try to, meet those goals, reach that bar that they've set. And we only hope that maybe someday, people can think that, hey, we're one of those people. Maybe we could be one of those, be thought of the same way. So, but like I said, it's with all your support and everybody else is here who's made this possible. I've worked with everybody here. Great city, great bunch of people. I can't say enough. So thank you, everybody, for giving me the chance to do these things. And thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right, congratulations to both of you. At this time, we're going to have some announcements from our council. I'll begin with Councilmember Albrecht. It's in the script. See, it says right here, Councilmember Albrecht.
Announcements, here we go. We have an event dedication ceremony at the Senior Center, which will take place Monday at 3:30 for Bags for Benches. These are plastic bags such as you would have get from the cleaners, lightweight, stretchy plastics, and now we've got 2 benches in the city, so there is a place to drop the bags off in the planning department on the wall where the window is, and there's also one in the Senior Center should anybody want to contribute. We have Calabasas High School Award Night, Senior Award Night. Scholarships will be presented at the Performing Arts also this coming Monday, starting at 6 o'clock. And the event is starting for the Casino Royale for West Virginia's Unified School District, Friday, June 6th from 7 to 10. Tickets are still available. It's a fun event. I think you'd really enjoy supporting the school district and the funds and the foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Shapiro.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment and mention this past Monday, while we all were off work, we were remembering Memorial Day and remembering those men and women who gave the ultimate sacrifice so we could continue to have the freedoms we have here and all throughout the United States. And I have a lot more to say about that, but I won't now. So thank you. And just want to mention this Sunday, a week from Sunday, is the first summer concert at the lake at Calabasas, and it's ABBA Fab. I hope I got that name right. So if you're a big ABBA fan, you can come dressed up and dance. I'm told to say that. Starts at 6 p.m. at the lake by the tennis courts. Come and enjoy. And last but not least, I just want to mention the passing of a longtime resident sadly, Judy Jordan passed away, a longtime commissioner and very active in the community, and I'm sure will adjourn in her memory in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Weintraub?
So many of the announcements have already been taken, but I just wanted to announce that there's going to be a creek cleanup on Saturday, June 21st, and you have to register, and there is a link on our website, or it should be there, and it's a partnership between the Mayor's Youth Council and the City of Calabasas, Saturday, June 21st, from 9 a.m. to 11. Thank you.
And Councilmember Bazagian?
Yes, I know it's a little ways away, but I want to get the community excited about the Chamber of Commerce's 70th anniversary celebration, which is going to be on June 27th, and that's going to be at the Calabasas Country Club. Tickets are available through the Chamber of Commerce website, chamberofcommerce.com, and tickets are $70. Goes to a good cause, and we hope to see you there.
All right, thank you. I'm getting a few more messages in here about announcements to share. I want to share the most important one first. For those of you that aren't aware, the Budget Committee meeting happens again tomorrow. Exciting that we have such a transparent process. So that meeting is tomorrow at, hold on, I've got to get the time right, 2 o'clock right here in Council Chambers, if you want to join us. Also want to recognize the caring community from the Senior Center and their national award that they just received. So congratulations again on that. And I have another one here. This just came across my desk. It's a letter from the Association of Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs. Dear Kindon, congratulations. You have been selected to receive the Association for Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs City Manager of the Year Award. And if we could get the city manager's face up on the screen, you should have seen that. I don't know why the camera was pointing at me during that. There's a smile you want to see. This award will be presented to you at the ALAD's 23rd Annual Awards Banquet, which will be held on Saturday, June 21st at the Pacific Palms Hotel in the City of Industry. And we will be there to celebrate with you. Congratulations.
Mayor, I was concerned when my family walked in that they were here for the budget discussion, knowing that I was delivering sensitive information tonight and needed all the protection I could get from.
So I think a few of our council members would like to share a few remarks. We'll start with Council Member Weintraub.
Congratulations, Kindon. So well deserved, and so nice to see Angie, Grant, and Ava here. I saw Kindon's face when you guys walked in, and it was priceless. But I just wanted to say that it was a real team effort from staff, getting all of the information that ALADS needed. So I just wanted to recognize Ani, Scott, Julie, Mike Dyer. So everyone was a part of it and so supportive, and we're just so excited for this recognition, which is so well deserved.
Thank you so much.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, when ALADS first contacted me, and I know they contacted other council members too, and floated the idea, I thought what a great suggestion it was. And a lot of people worked very hard behind the scenes, and it took a long time because they do a very extensive search throughout the county. The sheriffs contract with about 50 cities, 50 some odd cities in the county. So they had a lot of people to choose from. So it's a great honor. I've been to the awards banquet before. It's a big event, and there'll be, there could be like 1,000 people there, and I think you'll really enjoy it, and it's well deserved.
Thank you.
Councilmember Shapiro?
I join everyone as well in congratulating you and your family, part of your family who's here today. And yes, when they contacted us to discuss it, or each of us, or staff put this together, and then they contacted us. It was really something that is so appropriate, especially your work, not just for our city, but with the sheriffs, with the community out in public, with the rest of our COG and beyond. So it is something that is so well deserved, and it was great to see the surprise. Hard to keep it a secret because we were aware of it, obviously, and staff as well. So congratulations, so well deserved, and prepare your 20-minute speech for the 21st.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Yes, it was. It was very hard to keep the secret, but it was so well deserved. You know, there's an expression called being the man about town, and you have become that, not because you want to be a man about town, but because you're involved. You're involved through the COG and the managers' meetings, and you've met other city managers. It's your growth also that we've witnessed. It's amazing. And we appreciate that, and we feed off that. And you're so particular and so detail-orientated. It gives us a great feeling of confidence, and we share that with you, and I enjoy working with you, as we all do, and congratulations.
And I'll just close this out by saying this is not an agenda item, otherwise I'd open it for public comment. But so many of your staff and your city is behind you in getting this award, and we will be there to celebrate with you. So congratulations. We're glad the family could make it out this evening, and thank you to the staff for keeping it a secret for all this time. And congratulations one more time. City Manager of the Year, Kendon Meek. All right. It's now time for general public comments for items that are not on the agenda. So each speaker will be asked to state their name and city of residence that they live in, and will be allowed 3 minutes to address the city council on items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. The council is unable to respond due to state law, which prohibits the council from addressing any issues not on the agenda. But we are listening. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on non-agenda items? We have no speaker cards. Having none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of the following items. I don't think I need to read that. We have meeting minutes. We have the second reading of ordinance number 2025413 for fire hazard severity zones. We have amendment number 2 to the professional services agreement with Granicus to provide permit tracking and reporting software, and review of vacancy, recruitment, and retention information pursuant to requirements established under Assembly Bill 2561. Do any of my colleagues wish to pull any items from the consent calendar?
I'll move the consent.
The consent calendar has been moved by Councilmember Shapiro. Can I get a second?
Second.
A second by Councilmember Albrecht. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Before we go on, sure. Say if I can take a 5-minute break, just before we get up.
Okay, sure.
Is that okay?
We're going to take a quick 5-minute break here so that we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thanks.
Kendon should go celebrate with his family for 5 minutes.
How do you feel before they get back?
Yeah.
All right, I'll call us back to order. That was a rather exciting first half of our meeting. I don't think we'll be able to live up to that in the second half. So at this point on our agenda, we have no public hearings, no continued business. We're on to new business. And the next item is the draft budget for the fiscal year 2025 to 2026 with City Manager Kendon Meek presenting.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. We get situated here just with a few of the handouts. First of all, I want to start by thanking our budget committee for the number of meetings that we've had over the course of the last few months to get ready for this discussion tonight. We also, from the staff, we want to express appreciation for many of our public our residents that have joined us in those meetings. It's a new way that we've, with the standing committee through the budget, that we've involved the community and the residents. And it's been really just insightful to hear what they have to say and the ideas that they're coming up with, and so I appreciate that. So council, tonight we have a lot to go through, and we'll spend some time going through the slides. I'm happy to stop at any time for questions if you want clarification. At the same time, if you'd like to wait and go through the presentation, then we'll have the questions at your convenience and at your leisure. We're here to help you in this process. So first of all, just what we can get through the next one here. So 3 items that we'd like to focus on tonight is really just the current or the upcoming fiscal year operational budget. We'd like to talk about capital projects for the upcoming fiscal year. And then we'd also like to spend some time looking at our long-term budget forecast. So to start out with, we're going to focus this discussion primarily on the general fund. As the council is aware, you have an entire budget before you that looks at not just the general fund, but each of the city's funds. And we'll spend some time going in more into depth that probably on the June 11th meeting. But tonight, our focus is on the general fund as we look to get direction from you on several key items. Our general fund is derived, or the revenues from the general fund really come from 6 or 7 main sources. Those are listed here on the screen. We're fortunate to be in a city where retail establishments provide so much commerce for our community, and with that, sales tax is by far our biggest our revenue for the general fund. Our second most important revenue is our property tax, coming in at just about $5 million, this projected revenue source for this next year. As the council is aware and as the public is aware, when we incorporated as a city in 1991, in those negotiations of incorporation, we ended up with receiving 4.7% of the 1%. So each of us pay property taxes here in town, that 1%. And of that 1%, the city gets 4.7%. That is one of the lowest tax sharing of property taxes in LA County. Most likely because we're the last city to incorporate in LA County. And so we were stuck with probably one of the worst deals, but it also is one of our strongest revenues. To put it in a little bit of perspective, the city of Agoura Hills, they are at 6.14%. So they incorporated just about a decade before us. And so their property tax revenue for this current fiscal year is $6.8 million. So they're $1.8 million more in revenue just by that 2% difference. And so I think it's important to remember that that percentage is, because it's low, is always going to trail behind other cities in property tax revenue. Our total revenues for this, are projected for this next fiscal year is $30 million. And visually you can see what this looks like. Again, biggest percentages are our sales tax, property tax, and then our utility user taxes. Again, the foresight of those who initiated incorporation to include in that incorporation was the utility user tax for the electric, gas, and telecommunications has been a wonderful and unfortunate revenue for us over the years. Again, our third strongest revenue source through our general fund. Our general fund expenses are broken down as follows. We are a service entity, And so the city invests in its personnel. Without the personnel, we aren't able to provide the services to our community. So our biggest cost is $11 million in the general fund with our personnel cost. And then you can see from there it's others, which is utilities, programs, events, at about $7 million. And our sheriff contract this year is just over $6 million. From there, we have contractual services, our debt payment, and then our insurance through the JPIA. That covers our property tax, our property insurance, workers' comp, and other insurances there. One thing I do want to point out is, and we talked about this last budget cycle, if I go back to the previous slides, our property tax at $5 million, and our sheriff contract now at $6 million. So our sheriff contract exceeds our property tax revenues by $1 million. That's unique in the sense that in many cities, again, with higher tax rates for that property tax, they're still able to fully cover their share of cost through their property taxes. Here's an expense summary. Again, you can see just visually the personnel cost and then the other costs through there. And then I wanted to spend a little bit of time just talking about, again, our personnel cost and what we're seeing in trends. Let me get to that slide on my notes here. What we've put together here is a history of personnel costs going back to the fiscal year 2011, 2012 to the present. So again, the current fiscal year 24-25, that's an estimate. That's where we estimate that we're going to be at the end of this fiscal year. And then for the next fiscal year, this $11 million figure. If you look, in this slide, there's also an orange line. What that represents is our employee count. So from 2011-12, we've gone over from 100 employees, full-time employees, down to just about 80 full-time employees. So a drop in about 20-something employees, full-time employees across the city, but personnel cost for the general fund going up. And I wanted to let Ron just talk about this just briefly, just in the overall increase and what we're seeing in that trend. And Ron, I'll turn that over to you, and then I'll take it from.
Thank you. So here you have a 15-year chart. The annual growth is very low. It's a 1.8% annual growth from year to year, which is actually less than inflation has been over these past 15 years. What we are experiencing in the last few years, as you see it increase, is increased cost into CalPERS, which is our retirement fund with the state. So this year it's an additional $200,000 just in increased costs for the retirement. And also our increased cost for medical insurance. We generally estimate a 10% increase. This last year, that came up short. The medical insurance increase from CalPERS was higher than 10%. The year before it was less. The year before that it was less. So even as of today, I cannot give you an estimate because no information is coming out from CalPERS regarding medical insurance cost. We've also budgeted a cost of living adjustment in here for all the full-time staff as well. So when we budget for salaries and benefits, we actually budget based on our current staff that we have as of today, depending on what steps they're at and the positions that they're at. So that fluctuates and can fluctuate from year to year. And as we experienced tonight, we have 2 retirements that are walking out the door. Mm-hmm. So we'll have vacancies for a while until they get staffed, either through promotions or from hiring from the outside.
Thank you, Ron. I do want to have one takeaway on this is this drop in the employee count. So again, the number of full-time employees. If you look back to these dates, the 2011, 2012, this was before we added the senior center and before we added the community center. So really what the takeaway from this is we have fewer employees doing the same amount or plus more work than was done 12, 15 years ago. So it's very important to see, even though the costs are rising, we're trying to keep those costs lower by keeping the number of employees lower. But again, the services and what we're providing to the community has increased in that same amount of time. Your next slide council looks at contractual services, and this is one of the questions that the community residents wanted to clarify a little bit more as we met in the budget committee. And so here you have a summary of, again, that $4 million number for contractual services. And you can see that the top, you have them listed here, so in order of the amounts paid, the top 8 or 9 vendors that we pay equal about 70% of our contractual services. The others that are listed in this $1.2 million figure, this includes everything from repairing an elevator to purchasing janitorial supplies to maintaining our contract for internet, whatever that might be. And I know that there are some questions about that. We did provide you a copy at the dais. You should have this in front of you of the vendor and the total amount paid. Again, this is just for this current fiscal year, July through April. And you'll see in that the amounts that we've paid to each of these vendors. And all the way down to those who are receiving, for example, instructors at our senior center and others that are $1,000 for the fiscal year or $1,700 or whatever that might be. Again, so we are really wanting to be transparent and open with these expenses. We're happy to discuss this with anybody. We've provided copies, I think, for the community who would like to look at this, and we're willing to sit down and go through each of those vendors and talk about why we use those vendors for the services that we do. Going on to the next slide, I think this is very important and probably key to the discussion that we have tonight, is we're seeing, as Ron mentioned just with our employee cost, we're seeing overall our general fund costs are starting to outpace our revenues. And with that, we wanted to identify what were some of the new costs to the general fund or increases that we're seeing. And that's summarized here. Mayor?
If I could just make the request, the sharing notice and the AI assistant are blocking the bottom line, so you might want to change the Zoom if this is, especially if we're sharing this online to the community.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank
you to the IT world. I saw that on my screen, but I didn't realize it was projecting up on there, so thank you for catching that, Mayor. So yes, blocking there was the total of that $4 million. Again, the others are the $1.2 million, about 25% of the, up to 30% of the total others. But again, we want to be transparent with that, and you have that in front of you. We're willing to meet with anybody who would like to discuss those in more detail. Let me get here. See, now it pops back up again. Then our general fund expenses. So again, looking at what is new to this budget and what are significant increases. You have here about $2.1 million in either new cost or increases. We have, with the opening of the community center, this is a transfer, in essence, from the general fund to the community center to stabilize its operations for this fiscal year. As membership and as classes and camps and so forth continue to generate revenues, that number will go down over the next few years. But again, we wanted to show that was a new cost to this budget. We have here the COLA, insurance, sheriff contract, our new landscaping for the general fund, the CalPERS that Ron mentioned, and then our grant writers, lobbyists, medical insurance, and a compensation study on that. Again, $2.1 million in new cost. So the costs that we're looking at really don't include any capital projects. We'll come back to that later in the conversation. So where are we looking at for our general fund? So we're looking at about $30 million in revenues and about $32 million in expenses, with a deficit of just under $2.1 million. That's a big gap. Now I do want to compliment staff. When we took this initial presentation to the budget committee meeting on May 8th, we were looking at a number of about $2.3 million. And so we've been able to, just over the last few weeks, look at other costs that we could remove, we could lower, we can allocate out. And so we brought that down close to about $200,000+ just in the last couple of weeks. So again, I want to compliment the staff for doing their due diligence on that, leaving us still a big hurdle to discuss tonight and to tackle and wrestle with. But again, doing their due diligence to reduce that overall deficit going into this fiscal year. So one of the things that we'll talk about is how do we bridge this gap? And I wanted to just mention our reserves. The council has done well in maintaining its reserves over the years. We have about 19 million in total reserves with a policy of maintaining 50% of our general fund expenses. So whatever our expenditures are in our general fund, we maintain 50% of that. So as that number of expenses grows, then that 50% of that is also increases. So whatever we can whittle down tonight on cost to the general fund will reduce that number from 16 million and then free up more available reserve funds. But right now we're looking about 3 million, which includes funds deposited in our PARS Section 115 trust fund there. Cost savings initiatives. So as we talked with the budget subcommittee, the committee recommended that we bring back to the council 3 initiatives. First, looking at cost allocation. Second, reducing discretionary and operational expenses in the general fund. And then last case, whatever we can't do with those 2, that we could tap into general fund reserves. I'm going to spend some time, and I'll have Ron help out with this at first, discussing cost allocation. In your budget, you have several attachments that look at cost allocation. Allocating cost out to different funds from the general fund, or really is what is unburdening the general fund, is a very common practice and a normal practice throughout cities. In fact, I talked with a city attorney earlier today, and she said, not only is it something that is a practice, it's really the best practice and should be done legally. In that sense, it's in good effort to reduce that burden on that general fund, so the general fund is not subsidizing other activities or other events that could be sustaining themselves. The city already allocates costs of employees to certain funds, and that is found in your budget on pages 224 to 226. Those are the very last pages of your binder, but also the same information is here in the, oops, let me move that. The same information is in those attachments. So council, what we're looking at is taking certain employees that do work in each of these different funds throughout the year and unburdening or allocating out some of these general fund costs to the other funds. You have those listed in this spreadsheet. The slide that you're looking at here is just the employee cost allocation, so the personnel cost, salaries. And then you can see in this highlighted area the amount that we're proposing to allocate out to the different funds, which is approximately $678,000. And again, you can see in the other sheets which employees are currently allocated to different funds, and then highlighted employees are those that we're proposing be allocated out. The next slide, let me touch on this and then I'll turn it over to Ron, is outside of the employee cost. I'm not doing well with In addition to employee costs, we are also proposing that council consider allocating out legal costs, insurance, which is, again, our CJPIA cost, and then our landscaping allocation. So this is, landscaping costs would be any of our general fund landscaping costs that could be attributed to other funds. So with that, I'm going to pause for a little bit, and I'm going to let Ron step in here and explain cost allocation a little bit more in detail, and then we'll go on from there.
Thank you, Kendon. So back in August of 21, the city did contract with revenue and cost specialists, and they did perform a cost allocation plan. What that plan consisted of was looking at all of our in-service departments, where these departments provide services only to the city's other operating departments. So think about information technology, human resources, a finance department, legal services, the city manager's office, and so forth. We did this study with revenue cost specialists. They came back with an allocation method that complies with the Federal Office of Management and Budget, which means that if we ever receive federal grants, which we do receive from time to time, we could allocate out cost and it would comply with the federal requirements. The cost allocation plan back in 2021 amounted to $2.6 million. We came to council, we talked about it. It got greatly reduced by the council at that time. And then subsequently, we actually phased it out because we were at our limits for recovering those cost plans from mainly our transit department, from Measure R&M and from Prop A and C. So currently there is no cost allocation plan that the city does. But as Kimden mentioned, it is a best practice that the vast majority of cities in California do. They do that so that the operating departments are bearing their true cost of what it is to provide the service, whether it be the tennis and swim center or the library fund, the community center, could be charges to gas tax or other street-related funds. The city has a variety of funds that we could allocate various costs to. And so what we are attempting to do here is allocate about $1.6 million that the general fund has been paying for probably since the inception of the city. And I'll just give you an example. Property insurance. The general fund pays for all the property insurance of the entire city. While Tennis and Swim Center has their own fund, they don't pay any portion of the property insurance bill. Neither does the library, even though there's a large building next door, and the community center. Same way with workers' comp. The general fund pays for all the workers' comp, but there are other funds in the city that have employees that should pay their fair share, their appropriate proportionate share based on number of employees, cost to workers' comp. And then so forth, we can go on to general liability, legal services. We do not specifically only experience charges from the general fund, yet the general fund pays for all of the legal expenses here at this city, and they could be charged out to other funds as well, depending on where that cost is coming from. So that's our proposal for the council tonight. It's about a $1.6 million, which is a lot less than the 2.6 based on an actual federally approved cost allocation plan that we had done the study on back in August of 2021.
So council, we'll keep going. I know this is a lot of information. We'll come back to these slides because it's going to, we're going to need to unpack this. So in addition to cost allocation, we are looking at different ways that we can reduce overall expenses. We've provided a list here of about $1.3 million in annual expenses that we incur and ways to save. Now, I want to be very forthright as we start to talk about these. Each of these items on this list are very sensitive. They mean a lot to members of our public, they mean a lot to staff, they mean a lot to our council. So I think it's very important that we are just upfront with this. At the same time, I think the council is aware as policymakers, you have the ability to provide direction on any expense within the budget. And so if there's something that we haven't listed here that you'd like us to look at as a possible way to save overall general fund costs, we can do that as well. We won't go into detail on this, but what we've tried to do is provide you with ample space to make decisions. So if we're trying to make a 2.1, or if we're trying to come up with $2.1 million to bridge that gap, if the council approves a cost allocation plan at $1.6 million, then we're really needing just about $450,000 more to do. You have about $1.3 million in choices here. So again, the council could choose a couple of the big ones and meet that, or you could choose a variety of those different cost reduction or cost in the general fund to get to that 450,000 again if the council chooses to implement the full cost allocation. Now, in the event that we do not move forward with cost allocation, or we do not reduce these general fund expenses, then the general fund reserves have to pick up that burden. And so our goal is to safeguard the general fund reserves as much as possible by looking again at this cost allocation and expenses that can be either reduced or eliminated from the budget. So I'm going to pause right there. And Mayor, I think if you're okay, I'll just keep going on and talk about capital projects, or do you want to stop and go over any questions on the operating side of things first?
I think it's probably a good time for some questions here. At this point, we've covered, just in short summary, that we have about a $2.1 million gap to close, that the ways to close it are with a cost allocation plan, with cutting some of the services or events here in the city, or potentially using some of the available funds in the reserves. Again, but not going below that 50% reserve. That's sacred here. So those are really the three options that the Budget Committee has identified as ways of closing this $2.1 million gap. The rest of the presentation is about larger projects that we all have on our agendas. Those are outside of balancing the budget. At this point, if there's money left over in the available funds of our reserves, we could look at some of the capital projects. I think it's important to note that we have many millions in capital projects coming up that we're going to review here, but I think it's a good time to pause and let's take any council questions on the presentation so far.
And I think, Mayor, if we could, let's just focus on questions for clarification, and then we'll come back, if that's okay, Mayor, more on comments and direction at the very end, if we can.
That's correct. I'd like to have questions if we can. We'll finish the presentation, and then we're going to open it up for public comment. And I'd like to ask the council to hold deliberations until after we've heard the public comment period. Okay. Any questions at this point?
Yes.
Council member, or Mayor Pro Tem Bozajian.
I thought that was an open question. Sure. Two questions. One's for the city attorney. On the property tax percentage, has there been any, to your knowledge in California, any successful litigation of the inequities of cities, some cities getting 25% of the property tax, some of the oldest cities, and then the newest cities are told, if you want to incorporate, you're only getting 4.7% or something like that? That's the first part of that question. Second part is, there had been a bill in the state legislature years and years ago to equalize it, where every city got like 10%. And of course, those cities above 10% opposed it, and those cities like us below 10% were in favor of it. Has there been anything legislatively that you know of that's been brought up in recent years? And what would be your thoughts on those two questions?
No and no. And I would say that I certainly think that there have been attempts to try and get the newer cities that have incorporated a higher percentage, but I think based on the way the property tax and the tax code is written, it's just the way it has shaken out. And in order for any change to occur with respect to legislation, you're going to face the same type of problem because we're all looking at the same piece or the same pie. And to give somebody else, another city, a bigger portion of the pie would mean to give another city a lesser portion. And so it makes it increasingly difficult to do that now with so many different cities and tax rates. I think we're looking at a situation where there may be additional bills that are coming out in the near future regarding allocation of e-commerce sales tax. Property tax is a very difficult subject to tackle at the legislative level, and I think there should be more tax reform, but in terms of what has been coming out lately, so far there's been very little success. I know that there have been voter initiatives that have come out, and those have not necessarily fared well either.
Okay, the second question is to Kendon On this general, this document up at the dais, this general fund contractual services expenses, it makes it a little difficult to read this because some of these are coming out of different funds. Like, so the question would be like on the Newbury Park Tree Service, which is the second highest, is that all services or just that part that the city's paying for, not the landscape districts?
That's correct. So what you said at the last part, so what you're seeing on this list is the cost borne by the general fund. So this would be our parks, our medians, right-of-ways, anything like that that is city property that is not within a landscape maintenance district.
So if I'm looking at anything on this list, it is automatically general fund?
This is all general fund contractual services.
And of course, some of these may have large entries on other funds too.
Correct.
Okay, that clarifies that. Thank you.
Great questions.
Councilmember Weintraub, any questions?
So I have a lot of questions. I'm just trying to figure out when the right time would be to go over it now.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So I wanted to understand the plan for the general plan, to fund the general plan. That was one. I mean, I have a bunch of questions.
Yeah, so the general plan, we have it listed in our capital improvement plan, our 5-year plan, starting in fiscal year 26, 27. So it's not this fiscal year. Michael, can I turn to you and you want to talk a little bit about possible funding for general plans? Well, he's coming up. The short answer is most of that will be borne by the general fund, but I wanted to have Michael discuss that a little bit more too.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. We looked at adding the general plan to the capital improvement project list because it does take a significant investment. Our general plan was last updated in 2008, and it was called for 2030. So we are going to have to look at updating it, and we also have to update our housing element. Last time we did the housing element, it did cost the city about $400,000. And that was just the housing element and some updates to the safety and circulation elements. So typical general plans are about $1.5 million. We did apply for a grant last year through HUD. Unfortunately, we were not successful, but we are going to follow up with them to find out where we were unsuccessful. But we will continue to seek grants. That's our main source. We did add a line item to our fee schedule for planning that added for general plan updates, so we've tried to capture some money from that.
Thank you. My next question is, what is under special programs and events for $134,000?
And I'm going to see if I could have Erica come up and help with that. So as she's moving up, so there's two parts to that. One is at the direction of the council. Over the last few years, the council has asked that we provide or expand the number of programs and events. And so the Community Services Department has been doing that. Second, as we lost the opportunity to do the 4th of July, we've transferred some of those funds into that $134,000 to do, even expand more some of these events. And I'll let Erica talk about some of the events planned for this upcoming fiscal year.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. So we have quite a few new events planned this year. We are going to do a host of events for our July is Park and Recreation Month. We are going to have a pet costume contest. Let me put my glasses on because I can't see. Let's see what else. We're gonna do a National Night Out event in collaboration with the Sheriff's Department. We are going to partner with Something Yellow again to host the 5K. Am I missing one? Oh, we're going to do a spooky movie night in October. That's something fantastic. Yes. And I don't know why I don't have my second
Eric,
page.
I think the other thing too that you mentioned is that some of these funds have been allocated to start preparing for our 35th anniversary, our 35th
Yes,
birthday.
35th anniversary and the World Cup
next
events.
Okay, I think this is not, my question about Cal Recycle, that's not for general fund. Let me keep going for general fund. Okay, for the community center, there's no camps this summer. I saw like there was revenue under the community center for camps, and then the next 2 years, there isn't anything listed.
We do have camps. They're contracted camps, so that revenue is probably under our contract instructor revenue. So those are specialty camps that we have at the community center.
Okay, and then
Could I just ask you to speak into the microphone? We're barely getting the words up here.
Sure.
Yeah, we have about 13 camps already scheduled for this season.
Okay, maybe it was just listed somewhere else. The $120,000 for the rock wall, that's delayed for now?
Correct.
Okay. I guess that'll come up later. That'll come up later. These are just questions. Okay. So we shouldn't talk about tuition reimbursement, sheriff, none of that right now, right?
If you have specific questions on
No.
those, we can answer the questions if you want to.
Can you just, the tennis and swim center pool main line, that was a large budget item, if you could just explain that?
Yeah, and we'll discuss that a little bit more in the capital projects.
Okay.
Well, actually, I've pulled that out. So the main line is goes from the street to the pool.
Right.
It is what provides the water to fill the pool. It's original to the construction of the pool, and it's been patched and repaired over time, but really just needs a full replacement, and that's about $400,000.
Right. And then for the cost allocation with the LMDs, has that been discussed with all the people involved in the LMDs?
It has not. So I've met with, so Scott and I met with the representatives from CPHA, but we have not talked with the other LMDs or LLADs yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Albrecht? Again, just we're doing questions at this point. We'll get to capital projects and then public comment, and then we'll have our deliberations.
Yeah, Ron, I want to thank you and the team putting all this together for us, being on the budget committee with Mayor Kraut. I really don't have a lot of questions because a lot of them have been answered already in working with you on this. But there is one that I did mean to ask, and that's under the UTT, where we have, I don't know where the slide is, but taxes, gas, electric. Could you bring that slide up, if you can find it?
Got it. So you should see that. That is slide number 3
There we
in
go,
the packet.
number 3. So utility user taxes, electric, gas, and telecom. So with the growth of electric cars, so the gas tax will probably be reduced, but with the electricity, because we're talking about 4.1, pretty significant amount. Have you ever extrapolated what the difference would be with the increase in electricity versus the decrease in gas? Will that have an effect, more so because of the loss of gas, or less so because of the use of electricity?
So the gas tax, actually, for electric cars, there is a surcharge that the owners of electric cars actually pay when they register their vehicle annually. And that is supposed to replace the loss in the gas tax. I think it's woefully short, but that is there. So we will theoretically experience a loss in the gas tax. We have not yet so far, even with California, with all the electric vehicles that are currently out there, we have not seen a decrease in our gas tax. We have not experienced great increases either, so it's been more stable.
And Ron,
and maybe
if I can jump in, so I think the council member is referring to our natural gas on our utility user tax. So council member, this what you're seeing on this slide, our utility user taxes are on electricity, natural gas to the homes and businesses, and then telecommunications. So it's not.
I'm talking about fuel.
Okay.
For cars.
Yeah. So that doesn't hit our general fund. That becomes a separate fund under the gas tax.
Okay. What is that separate fund titled as?
Gas tax.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's Fund 15 is gas tax, and that funds our streets and roads and does all the reconstruction, slurry seal, so forth throughout the city. To answer your question on the UUT for the electricity, we are experiencing increases in our UUT for electricity, and those increases are reflected in the budget. I do not know specifically how much is related to electrical vehicle and the fueling of the electrical vehicles. All I know is that electric sales are increasing, so it's probably due to the rate of electricity as well as to the volume.
Well said. I agree with that. So glad you have an eye on it. And I'm glad to know that it's natural gas, not regular gas. So
Correct.
we'll keep an eye on the separation. Thank you.
Councilmember Shapiro.
Thank you very much. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't get to sit with you and enjoy this great pleasure. I do want to thank Ron Kendon and the Budget Committee, the mayor and Councilmember Albrecht for their hard work. I know how difficult this job is and how important it is, and thanks for the detail and the presentation. I do have a number of questions, and I'll try and keep them only to questions now, because I listen. On the general fund revenue summary, the other of about a little less than 3.1 million, can you give a little bit of detail as to what that would include or entail, please?
Ron, do you want to take that one?
It is all of the event fees. So in our Parks Department, it would be all the money that the senior center collects for their various class charges, program fees, so forth. It's also various fees. So there are some engineering fees charged by Public Works that are in there, as well as interest income is also in the 3 million. So that's a few $100,000 just for interest income. So it's a variety, and it's dozens upon dozens of different accounts in there.
Okay, and that's appreciated, and I'll make a comment later for at least understanding and reading the budget when it comes time, much later. But that's helpful.
And Councilmember, just for the public, for those who have access to the budget document, those are on page 10 and 11 of the budget document, so that you can see the list of all of those revenues and their amounts. So what we've shown is anything really above 970,000. So anything below that is accumulative in that 3 million.
Great, thank you. That's helpful. And then the next question, and this is more of a theoretical question. I don't even think it's theoretical, asking you, Ron. Do you think TOT will grow with the upcoming FIFA World Cup in 26, and then again the Olympics and Special Olympics, Paralympics in 2028 for our city in particular?
The answer is yes, and the closer we are to an Olympic venue, then even more so. If people remember the '84 Olympics, those venues went from Santa Barbara out to Riverside and San Bernardino and the various college campuses throughout Southern California. So I would anticipate, yes, an increase in our TOT during those events.
Especially with a venue planned for right in the valley by Encino Lake Balboa area, right?
Right.
Okay, great. And then looking at the charts, personnel costs, I'm not sure the page number, you had it, showing the chart, there you go, which about 78 full-time employees are FTE, if I'm correct on that number. And that's for the time frame 2021 to the present approximately. Do you have a chart or anything that would indicate part-time or contract employees during that time frame as well?
We do not have it currently. We can definitely get you that by the June 11th meeting and show you a history of hourly employees. It would be more a dollar amount. We do not have an FTE equivalent. We don't track hours in that manner. That would be a decent study and a number of hours to accomplish.
At least dollar amount is actually more relevant than the number of individuals, I think. Yes.
And I think, Councilman, I think that's a fair question, because I think if you take that next step, the question is full-time employees are decreasing, but are the part-time employees increasing? They are. We rely a lot on our part-time employees, and there's pluses and minuses with that. As any employer knows, that once you find a great part-time employee, they're always looking for that full-time position. And so if we can't offer it, we train them up and then they're gone pretty soon.
Of course.
And so again, we rely a lot on part-time employees, and some of it is by the nature of the services that we provide. as we ramp up and for summer programmings and things like that. But it does lower that number of full-time employees.
Right. It would, especially in dollars, it would be
Yeah.
good to compare, or at least know. And along those same lines, this is a question, I guess, asking for the same thing with regard to, and I know we've discussed this before, contractual employees from 21 to 25 to see what the dollar amounts are. It's not necessarily the number of them or the names necessarily, but to know those from whether they've increased, what the amounts are, so we can at least be aware of that up here. Please, I guess that's more of a request. Question. Another question. The $1.6 million cost allocations recommended, which again, just a quick comment, I think it makes excellent sense. We've discussed it back in 2021 as a council, and it made sense then. Does this help us reduce by the $1.6 million, or does it only shift the funds, shift the burden of the allocation?
So with cost allocation, we're not saving anything per se.
Right.
It's unburdening the general fund and reallocating it to other funds.
To specific funds, as you mentioned.
Correct.
Okay. Just clarifying, and one last question here is it's on page 7 of the report we have up here, not your report, but you reference it under general fund increases and new costs, but in the report we have on page 7, not the one up here in the staff report. You reference, and if this is jumping ahead, tell me. You reference debt service payment to City Hall and Senior Center of $1,883,000, and as we mentioned before, that isn't just a payment, that's an asset for paying and increasing the city's assets by paying something down, correct?
Correct. This is akin to your family mortgage that you have for your home. And if I could just put a little asterisk, the library fund pays an additional $600,000 to this, so the actual cash out the door for the entire city is $2.6 million. This is just the general fund portion.
Okay. And that's good
just
to
to be
know.
clear.
That's helpful, thank you. And then the only question is on the next one, the insurance premiums, JPIA and CJPIA. Is the reason those numbers are high at 1.683 and 883, 500,000, again, because there are claims going up and we are having to be part of a joint group paying settlements, claims, or is it something just to do with our city?
It's the general cost of insurance and doing business. Our workers' comp is actually better than average. Our general liability, I don't really know an average of that, but our number of claims and the dollar amounts have not been large since I've been here, so the last 6 years for those claims. So it's literally just CJPIA going out and purchasing the reinsurance in the market.
Okay, and those rates are affected by everyone who is a part of the CJPIA, correct?
Correct.
And any claims that might occur in other jurisdictions with whatever governmental agencies that we might be a part of, we get to share in that expense, correct?
Correct, but we also have a portion of it that is based on our experience, as you previously stated. So if we maintain our risk management policies and procedures and implement them well, i.e. don't have car accidents, trips and falls, and take care of our sidewalks and so forth, then we are the beneficiary of that by having reduced premiums in the future.
Great, thank you very much. No further questions now.
All right, and I'll just throw out 2 quick questions, just keep the ball rolling here, and then we'll move on to our capital projects. But my first question is on our cost allocation plan. You had mentioned our study in 2021 had a large number. It came before council. We decided to do a smaller cost allocation plan here. In those areas, if we look at the categories that you have on that presentation here, as far as the LMDs, the library, the senior center, the community center, tennis and swim. Are each of these line items below the number that was in the 2021 plan, or is just the overall number that we're looking at?
It's both. The overall number is the 1.6 versus it was 2.6. And then for all of the allocation out, I believe, I'd have to double check, but I believe all these funds are less than what they were in the 2021 study.
Okay, but the 2021 study did break it down by each individual funds?
Correct.
Okay, so I would like confirmation of that. So in addition to the homework assignment that Councilmember Shapiro has given you, if you would also confirm that before our next meeting, that would be great. And then in regards to the cuts or the cost reduction slide, one of the things that was on here was the sheriff's contract reducing a deputy service hours, 1460 hours. Could you, maybe this is a question for our city manager, could you explain to us what we would experience if we cut a deputy by cut our deputy service by 1,460 hours?
Thank you. So this is, so the way we're charged through our sheriff contract is by minutes or hours. And so each deputy service unit, they call it, not deputies. So we often think of deputies patrolling the street, vehicles, bodies. We're charged by deputy service unit. And those are broken down by minutes and hours. And so we are billed every time there's activity in our community, whether that's patrol, an accident, a burglary. And so our minutes fluctuate. So for example, a normal patrol, we'd be billed for those minutes of a deputy just moving around town. In the event of an incident where there's a call out and cars come from Agora Hills or from even Westlake, we start seeing those minutes added on. So that's where we're billed, or those minutes make up our billing. And so it evens out over the course of the year. And so really, those would still be called out. Anytime that there was an emergency, we would see those extra help come from other jurisdictions. What we would see probably is this equals out to about, I'd have to do the math, it's less than about 20 hours a week, I think, is what we'd see in deputy minutes throughout. And so that could be just a few less patrols, but not doing away with patrols. I think that makes it clear that way.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I think it's a good time to move on then to our capital projects. Then we'll circle back to questions from the community, and then we'll come back to the council for additional comments, questions, and deliberations.
Great, and thank you, council, for those questions. Let me move then to capital projects. Let me go back here. So when we started the budget process, we looked at our 5-year capital plan and what we anticipated what projects we anticipated moving forward with. And then we also worked with our directors to identify really pertinent needs for this upcoming fiscal year. In doing so, we came up with 3 different areas for general fund, and, just overall, and then tennis and swim, and then community center. So what you have here is, first we identified about $2.7 million worth of projects in general fund capital projects. Tennis and swim center about $3.5 million. You can see there that the tennis and swim center has only about $78,000 in its balance, and so that would be a deficit for that. So any additional funds would actually be borrowing from the general fund. Here, starting up is the $1.9 million in our deferred maintenance. 2 years ago, the council in its foresight moved general fund reserves and created the deferred maintenance fund, which allows us to tap into those excess monies and carry out projects. So 2.7 million in projects identified there, 3.5 million projects identified at the tennis and swim, and then at the community center about 950,000. The community center is starting in with a negative balance of about 1.8. This is, again, the startup cost of opening that facility and getting it ready for the public. And so anything on that, again, would be borrowing from the general fund until the community center either could pay that back or it's just offset by general fund contribution. after we met with the budget committee, the direction there was prioritize. Let's really narrow down that list, postpone some of these projects, see what we can pursue through grants and state and federal allocations, and then, if necessary, tap into general fund reserves. So with that, what we've done is we've come back and we've identified really 3 projects for this fiscal year. HVAC replacement, and then the electrical panel at the tennis and swim. So HVAC is citywide, city facilities, at about $2.7 million. And then Founders Hall, our audio-visual system. So what's listed there is $125,000. That would be the cost of the general fund. The library fund reserves would also pick up another $125,000. Total project cost is about $250,000, but because it's a shared space and a shared use, both the general fund and the library fund would pay for that. So if we were to go forward with that, we would need to use about $1.3 million in general fund reserves to make that happen. Now, with that said, what we are requesting at this point from staff is that we postpone and just hold off on any capital projects. Scott and the budget committee and the mayor pro tem have been working diligently with the Cumming Group and others to look at a solar and energy retrofit project, which we could still roll the HVAC and the electrical panel into that. And so if that's the case, that would save us over $3.2 million in costs that we could now put into that overall project. And what we would do is then is come back and reprioritize with the council and determine what, if any, capital projects we would move forward with, depending on, again, the availability of funds. We will need to move forward with the Founders Hall AV system again, and that would be $125,000 from the deferred maintenance fund and $125,000 from the library fund. Now, also, one of the things that the budget committee wanted to make sure that we didn't lose sight of was that planning for the future, we still need to invest in our pension and other post-employment benefit liabilities or unfunded costs. And so the committee recommended that if possible, if there is available funds, that we'd invest in that PARS Section 115 again, and staff would recommend about $400,000 to the pension, $100,000 to the other post-employment benefits. Again, that's contingent on available funds. Now with that, so that talks about the projects, and I want to transition to the last part of this where we're looking at the long-term financial forecast. And I think this is really the most, there's 2 really pressing issues: what we do for this current budget, and then what we do going forward to address the structural deficit that we're seeing. This is a slide that you saw last year, and really what this shows is, again, just a visual representation of our expenses outpacing our revenues. So if nothing changes, meaning if we don't do anything tonight and we rely on general fund reserves to bridge that gap of that 2.1 million, what we're going to see is that over time, our expenses will further, that gap between our expenses and our revenues will widen, increasing that structural deficit. Eventually, we'll not only run out of our excess reserves, but we'll have to dip into our 50% reserve fund just to maintain operations. Now again, if the council chooses to implement a cost allocation plan and chooses to reduce cost, that gap between those 2 numbers decreases significantly. And it's almost a refresh on that. However, even with that, I think it's important to look ahead and what we need to be doing with a capital replacement plan. Again, the council, with its foresight, created that deferred maintenance fund, moved money over there so we could start addressing our capital. But what we've done working with Ron and our directors is we've looked at all of our city facilities and we've started to put together, this is really a draft. This is a dynamic document. It's a work in progress. But we're starting to look at, over the next number of years, what will we need to replace? Is that a roof? Is that flooring? Is that HVAC systems? Are there new playgrounds? Whatever that might be, and start setting aside funds for those. We're really fortunate as a city that we were able to use nearly $6 million in ARPA funds to renovate all of our parks and build Wild Walnut Park, with some general fund monies with that as well. However, with that, so for example, Brandon's Village, to replace a playground like that, Erica, what would you say, about 10, 12 years for a playground to replacement? Best case scenario. So we should be putting $100,000 away just to replace the playground in 10 or 12 years. That's just the playground. That's not the tennis courts, that's not the bathrooms, that's not the fencing, that's not anything else. So what we're looking at is we really should be putting away about $2.8 million a year to cover all of our infrastructure costs going forward. And if you look at then, if you add that to this slide, that gray line shows, okay, for our normal operating expenses, now we have this gray line, that gap widens even that much more. And if we're starting to look at, again, our pension and other post-employment liabilities, this yellow line, we're really talking now about $3.2 million a year we should be setting aside for future expenses. Again, we don't have that this year. And so the long-term forecast, we need to start talking about how we generate new revenues to bring in to offset these ongoing costs that we're going to have over the next few years. And some of it is even just making up for lost time in the infrastructure we haven't invested in. So, Council Member, you mentioned the water line at the pool. I think the pool is 60 years old. Is that right? Does anybody remember? So that water line is 60 years old. We probably should have replaced that a few years ago. We've band-aided it, we've patched it for a number of years. At some point, we just can't do that anymore. And so it's starting to catch up with us. And so we're going to have to go back and improve a lot of the infrastructure that hasn't been taken care of, and then start setting aside that money, $2.8 million, to start addressing roofs, other equipment, and things like that in the future. That would be more of a conversation, council, for a future meeting, and if directed so, we would like to come back in August at a meeting to start looking at what the council wants to do in the future. Where do we go from here to generate new revenues, or to really explore ways to change the trajectory of those two lines. So with that, council, we're happy to discuss any questions. Tomorrow is the Budget Standing Committee, so with any questions that you have now, we'll meet again tomorrow with the Budget Committee, and then we would come back in June 11th to present the modified or updated version of the budget. Any questions just on the capital projects or the long-term forecast?
And if there's no specific questions on capital projects or the long-term forecast, anybody? No? Go ahead.
Overall, I'm very worried about us not investing in our facilities and our infrastructure. That's very worrisome to me, because having a water line or main line that's 60 years old and that we know needs repairs and not doing it, it's going to end up costing us more in the end with all of these things. And I would be interested in going back over that list of the capital projects, the ones that really should be done. I mean, things end up costing more when you put them off, and then, well, we have to shut down the facilities if something goes wrong. I'm very curious about the community center and the tennis and swim center. I know community center ends up being like 1.1 million, and tennis and swim center 3.8 million. So,
tennis and swim, now some of these are more urgent than others,
right.
But yes, yeah, but just about 3.5 million in immediate needs. Again,
right.
Some could be postponed a fiscal year, but there's really.
But I'm curious, if some of these are not done and they break, will we have to shut down the tennis and swim center? I mean, even the pool heater.
Our biggest concern is that electrical panel.
Okay.
That could go out any day.
Right, and to me, that's not something you put off any longer. Things like that, when it has to do with electrical. I asked when we were getting a food vendor at the tennis and swim center, and the response was we have to upgrade the kitchen. But that's another conversation. Would someone else come in and help pay that? Help offset that cost if they were allowed to run their food service business out of the Tennis and Swim Center. I mean, I'd love to find different like creative ways as we look at some of these, but I don't want to put off things that we know need to be done. Like, to me, I don't know, I think a rock wall is great, but that's not like something to me that has to be done today. But an electrical panel, to me, is something that has to be done today.
If I can just interject for a moment, we did want to have our public participation in this, and I have a request from a council member for a very quick break so we can concentrate on our discussions.
Okay.
So if we could just have any questions regarding capital projects in the presentation or the future forecast? Councilmember Shapiro?
Thank you. Briefly, referring to page 16 on your presentation, picnic shelter replacement, is that Dianza or is that somewhere else? Okay. Okay. Which parks, if I can ask? That's my, I'm just.
It's Dianza, Gates Canyon, Great Harbor. Those are the 3 picnic shelters.
Okay, thank you. And
Sorry, did you say Great Barber? Great Barber. We didn't just do Great Barber?
we did. That was 2008. Okay, thanks.
But we didn't do it with Brandon.
And then on page 20 on the report, Ron? Page 20, or maybe this is for Kendon. I don't know if you know. Ron was here, so he would. Wasn't it 4 or 5 years ago that we as a council, as part of the budget process, allocated funds? I don't know if it was a grant, or if it was funds, to redo Founders Hall AV system. And I was trying to, at that point, get, I believe, or council was interested in possibly putting speakers and lights even on the outdoor amphitheater as part of those funds. What happened to those funds in that project? That's the question.
Let me turn to Scott Trujillo, our Assistant City
Ah.
Manager, on that one.
Okay.
Great question. We actually went out for RFP for that AV upgrade in 2024, received bids, and then we were about to embark on a contract, but due to budget constraints, we pulled back, and since then have been on the same path to bring that forth again. So here it arises again to hopefully get funded this year.
Okay.
And Councilman, just to clarify on that too, is when we originally budgeted for this, I think we were at about 150,000. The proposal came out at 250,000.
Right.
So it was about 100,000 more in cost.
So Councilmember Shapiro, you are correct. It was originally funded by ARPA.
Right.
But then we were going out to bid and we were experiencing the delays in all that process. And you'll recall council approved using all the construction that we did on community center to spend the remainder of our ARPA money because we needed to spend that as of December 2024, right? So that unfunded the Founders Hall AV system because it was supposed to be, it was funded by ARPA.
Thank you. I didn't know that was in place of, but I know we all supported that. So thank you for the answers.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay. If there's no questions, we'd now move on to public comment. I do not have any speaker cards, but I want to make sure the public has a chance to weigh in. If any members of the public wish to speak. Seeing none, all right. If you do want to speak, don't forget we have a budget committee meeting tomorrow, so you can continue the discussion. I do want to have an in-depth discussion over how we want to close this gap and address capital projects. I do have a request from a council member for a quick break. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. Please do not be late, and then we'll get into our robust discussion. right, we are now back in session. There was no public comment for this last item, so we're going to continue on with discussion. I believe our charge this evening is to give direction to the Budget Committee, and the budget will then be brought back to us for review. So at this point in time, I'd like to get some input from our council members. Who would like to begin? We'll let Councilmember Albrecht begin, because the member of our Budget Committee.
So I got a question for you. Are we talking about discussion in general? Is there a...
We're now into discussion. We can discuss, again, we're trying to close a gap of 2.1 million in the general fund. We have 3.1 million available in reserves over and above the 50%. We have a cost allocation plan suggested in front of us. We have a list of items to cut. And somehow in combination of those three, we need to achieve that 2.1 million. And then we can also have discussion on capital projects if there's any money left over in that available funds, or if we wanted to pursue other means.
Well, my suggestion would be maybe we can all work off the same chart. And let me find the page of it. So I'm on page 15 of the cost reduction. And, you know, having served on the Budget Committee, and I wish somebody would be a hero and find a solution that would make the bad evaporate. I hear everything that we've got here. I think Councilmember Weintraub mentioned two emergencies that really are important to be done. And I don't want to lose sight of that, because it could happen right now while we're sitting here, and we're going to have to deal with that. So it's part of this, the other side of the cost reduction, but by reducing some of the costs, maybe we'll make some of those available. First, I'd like to comment on the cost allocation, and I think that's definitely reflective of actuals. I'm very supportive of it. I wish we would have done that years ago, so it would be a common practice for our city, but it wasn't, but now it should be. And in a robotic sense, it delivers the cost to the people who are ultimately responsible, even on a proportional basis. So that's what I would call a true cost distribution. I'd also like to avoid, before I get into the cost reduction, using money from general funds if possible, because it's easy to dip into a savings account, but people have to realize that we've got that money invested, and there's a percentage of earned revenue that we achieve from that. So whatever we use, we're not going to be obtaining from the revenue side. So it's a precious commodity that to us is almost like gold, and so at great risk of using it, because if there is an emergency, that's what it's for, and we don't want to. We want to be mindful of protecting for it. I'm going to go down the list myself and just kind of comment on it. It's hard for everybody, for all of us that sit up here, and many of us that are listening and watching have been residents for a long, long time. Our family's been living here 31 years and have enjoyed all the opportunities the city has provided, and I hate to see anything rolled back. We're a little slice of heaven here, but nonetheless, we've got a responsibility to ourselves and the city to make sure we stay vital and have a budget that's appropriate. And as I go down the list, for someone who, and I know we all believe in the sheriff and public safety for us, and we repeat it all the time, number one, but we spend so much money on it, and I like the idea of looking at the sheriff's contract a little bit and going over that, and maybe from the hours of service, seeing if we can make some adjustments. Maybe we can squeeze a little bit from everything so no one really gets hurt, but everything on here shares it a little bit until we work our way out to a future where we have a better revenue stream. You know, I've said this before, in private practice, a company can go to a bank and get a loan if it's a good company based on their assets and open up a department and most likely make a profit from that department or try different departments, different avenues, and grow their business. We don't have that option. We can't grow our business in a big way, and we can't depend on grants on the budget. Sometimes you get it, and sometimes you don't. So we keep our fingers crossed on the grants. So I think we have to really take a close look on all of this. And so my one thought would be to modify the sheriff's contract. Not huge, just enough to help out a little bit. And as we go down across the cost reduction, a proportional amount of each. Maybe some more than less. And again, I know all of us care dearly about all of the items that are on here. Public safety being number one, education being number two, the donations to the PFCs. The argument here is there's a balance in their accounts, quite significant, and maybe that's something we're going to need to have to look at least for the time being. Maybe they can help us through also. We've been generous over many, many years. I've given out checks with Councilman Shapiro a couple of years ago, a significant amount of money. I enjoy doing that, something we, as a council, felt was extremely important and with satisfaction. So that might be something I think we need to look at. Security for city facilities. We're going to talk about this tomorrow at the Budget Committee, and I'm not sure how many problems we've had on the civic campus. We'll have to look back on the past 6 or 8 months and see when those problems did happen, how many we had, and at what time. So that might be something we can save a little bit. We all like security, but we have to be proportional. Some things I feel sacred about, and that's certainly the city employees, the 457 plan. They're the backbone to this city, and that I value very, very much, and I hope my other council members feel the same. Not sure about the rental voucher program. I'm not exactly sure how that works, so I'm going to leave that out so I get a better handle before I make a decision. And the Pumpkin Festival, certainly that's something I think everybody looks forward to. It's hard to deny that. Somehow, some way, we have to work that in. Maybe we can cut it back a little bit. The children look forward to it. It's emblematic of our city. Concerts in the park, again, we've got 4 of them each year. I know how many people attend it. Maybe we can cut it back a little bit. It's not that much, but if we're taking a little bit from everybody, that's a good possibility. Definitely on the public information side, we've been videoing the commission meetings, and there's a cost involved to that. I don't think every commission meeting needs to be videoed and reviewed. There's a lot of work that goes into that. I would like to see the planning and city council being the 2 only. That would serve a great purpose, and anybody that really wants to review a commission meeting can go online. Maybe we can continue having the minutes of the agenda and the minutes put online so they can review it and read it. Discretionary funds for the council. I think for anybody who's heard about council discretionary funds, yes, we have funds that are available. It's not to go play golf. It's not to go on vacation. We use it very, very carefully. It's used for city events. It goes to nonprofits that we support. It goes to education. It gives us the luxury of being able to go to events. We don't have a very large salary at all on this council, so that helps funding those, but all the money goes back to very good purposes. And I don't think anybody would object, but I wouldn't object to cutting it back a little bit if necessary. Administrative services, open space security. Now we're getting down into the crumbs a little bit in terms of the big need that we have. So I know how vital that is to the community and the neighborhoods that are in open space. So we can talk about that more on the budget committee tomorrow. Community services, the holiday events. These are things that we can cut down proportionately, I think. I'll use our reorg as an example. What a great event it's been over the years. But we serve a lot of wine, we serve a lot of food, we don't eat it all. We can cut back on this. We can cut back a little bit, because a little bit, inch by inch, gets you to a first down. You're not going to get it on one play. So I'd support every one of those toward the bottom and just slow down on the last four items: community service, administrative services, city council, and community services. And there we've made a good dent. And that's where I'd begin. So no one's getting blacked out, but no one's getting blackballed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Shapiro?
Yeah. All right, thank you. And thank you again for the hard work in the Budget Committee, and Kindon and Ron, and I have all kinds of comments. Start with positives. And a question for Ron or Kindon or the Budget Committee. What, if any, downside is there to us adopting as a council the cost allocation to put $1.6 million into other areas, other funds to relieve the general fund budget?
I love that question, because this is something we've wrestled with. And in fact, as we met with members of different groups and have talked about this, what happens is as you reallocate that, it can squeeze other budgets. So for example, if you're looking at library or tennis and swim or community center, those are real costs now that they're having to absorb. And so it really puts kind of a microscope on their services as well. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to overburden another fund to the point where it is detrimental, that fund. Now, with that said, all of those services, whether it's library or community center or the tennis and swim, are subsidized in some ways by cities, by the general fund throughout California. We're fortunate, for example, with the library to have an assessment, but most cities don't have that. And so again, a lot of their library services come out of their general fund. And so again, that would be a policy decision. Again, if we get to a point where it's too much of a burden on a certain fund, then we could scale that back. Because what you don't want to do is get to that point where it causes a certain fund to have to reduce services excessively. Now with some of these outside, for example, with the landscape maintenance districts, with that, it would eventually do the same. So there would either be a squeeze out of services. Now what the benefit of the LMDs have that, for example, the library or doesn't have is the landscape maintenance districts can do an assessment and go through the Prop 218 process. And in fact, we're coming forward, I think, next week or our next meeting with one of those districts that is going out for that Prop 218, requesting a higher allocation, a higher assessment. And so, yes, those who have surpluses, meaning they're running in the black continually, they can absorb that much easier than those who are really, covering expenses just barely. And so, again, they do have the luxury of going out for a Prop 218 and increasing those assessments if they'd like to.
Great, thank you.
Great question.
And again, I assume these have been allocated in what we received in our binders plural, fairly and with some forethought by Ron and you and the committee. So based on that, and without squeezing because I do not want to lose services for any residents, anyone in the community. That's part of our goal here, I think. I do support the cost allocation, the 1.6, to get us partway to what we're trying to do. And I think it makes good sense. The other thing that always has made good sense, and I know Mayor Kraut and I talked about this quite a bit, is deferred maintenance and having deferred maintenance funds. It's very, very important. I support that. I realize some years may be easier to provide more funds than others, and we'll get to that later on, but that is something I do support. Here's where I'm probably going to get in a little trouble. Remember, you are City Manager of the Year, so before I say anything. Okay. Okay. I'll make the other comment I was going to make earlier. On a cost, let's say, for example, and I'm not looking at the cost reduction because I'll get to that, but let's say Pumpkin Festival. It gives a number of 112,000, I believe, 112,500. It would be helpful to us as a council, for me personally, to say, okay, the cost is this, but we take in this much income, so what is really the net cost to the city or to us as a council looking at a budget? Side by side, and that goes for a number of items. At least for me, it's much easier to see, to understand, to evaluate than just seeing a cost.
And so the cost that you see for Pumpkin Festival is that net cost?
It is the net
So
cost
we've taken
for
out
one day. Okay.
Yeah, so we've taken out the revenues.
Okay.
And so what you're seeing there is everything that costs to run the program, including staff overtime, security, whatever that might be, minus the revenues.
Okay, I appreciate that. It's still, for my reading of a budget or items, it's really helpful, especially if you're pinpointing certain items, to see side by side the cost. If it's 220,000 and we get 70 back, and whatever it might be. That's just for the budget committee and for both of you, my 2 cents. And by the way, I'm not picking on any of these items on this list at all right now. I'll get to that, comments on that. I've said for the past years in budget committee and public that we need to be fiscally prudent. It's our responsibility as a council to be caretakers for the future, not just this year, not just next year, but for a long term for the city, and to make sure we leave the city in good condition financially and otherwise. We talked about reducing expenses, increasing income. Those are the two ways you can do it, either together or separately, to reach a balanced budget. We've spent money on capital projects. A lot of it is ARPA funds, the parks, including the new ones, community center, and those are great expenditures for the future of the city and for now. So I support that. Our income's not keeping up with expenses, as you all are telling us. I still believe deferred maintenance is very important and something we should always be thinking about, and appreciate the forward thinking of all of you on that. Also funding unfunded liabilities, creating benefits the city as well. Paying down the debt service benefits the city. These are not just expenses, but it is bringing a future benefit to the city. So I do understand that. And here's, I'm going to ask the question. On the cost reduction, is that coming from the budget committee, from staff, from the 2021 study? Who is recommending those items to be discussed tonight, if I may?
Yeah, so this is an expanded list. We took a list to the budget committee on May 8th, and then we came back and expanded that. So this is staff identified list.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then maybe shrunk a little bit from what you provided?
It grew from what we provided.
It grew, okay.
Yeah, so we
That's a
started
good
out
thing.
with, I want to say maybe 500,000 in potential cost savings.
Okay.
And grew it to about 1.3 million.
Okay.
Now, again, we could go through the budget book, and there's a lot of other costs that could end up on this list.
Right.
And as the policymakers, call that out, and we can discuss that.
Okay, and I mean, I'm not jumping on that one right now. I'll go to a separate discussion point, the general fund reserves, which I'm a big proponent of. I think when I got in council, we were, for years, 70%, over 70% general fund reserves. We reduced it to 65, 62, 63, whatever it might be, and now it's 55. I'm not sure the exact number. To me, when we agreed as a council to keep it at 50, that's a bare bottom line minimum. It's something, again, I'm looking at the future of the city, not this year, next year, long after most of us are not here on council. Many of us in the room won't be here, but our goal should not be to leave the cupboard bare in case of an emergency, case of an unforeseen pandemic, whatever it might be. So that's why the 50%, and I'll be very strong. I don't even want to go there. I know in an emergency, we have to. I don't think this is an emergency yet. Just my 2 cents on that. And again, the PARS section 115 trust is a very good way. That's the unfunded liability. That is a very good use of funds as well, especially in good years. The more we can put in is better. I've already talked about cost allocation, and then I'll go to the comments. If we're going to look, before we look at this cost reduction sheet on page, let me get here, 15, there we go. I'll just make a quick comment on cost in the details of the discretionary funds. For some reason, and maybe there's something I don't know about, but some of the council showed 6,200, some showed 6,000. So I assume that's not supposed to be that way, correct?
So that was a calculation that was applied to some council and not to other. And that's actually for next fiscal year, because we actually showed 2 years of the budget. So fiscal year 25, 26, and then 26, 27 is where you're seeing the 6,200. In next year's budget, everybody is the same at 6,000.
And that's a miscalculation.
Okay, that's what I figured.
The Excel spreadsheet has some normal calculations for COLAs or increases, and so it picked up on some of those, but it on others. There's no discrepancy in what council members will receive.
I figured, unless there was something I should know, I don't know. The budget committee just, no, I'm teasing. All right. Before I get into details of the item number 9, page 15, which you provided, or comments on that, looking at some of these general fund increases in new areas, are there any potential grants or sources of income that can be used for this? For example, the compensation study new of $150,000. Is that something that has already been done or is going to be done?
That hasn't been done, and very unlikely that it would be funded by grants.
Right, okay, that was a separate question.
Yeah.
And the advocacy and grant writing, which I know we are excited about as a council and proceeding forward, it's possible, whether it's this year, next year, soon, as soon as possible, they'll hopefully provide sources of income to the city by way of funding or grants or revenue sources, right?
That's correct, and we've already seen some success with California Consulting. They worked with Mike Dyer to put in grant applications for generators. So again, this would have been a cost, a capital cost that we would incur at some point. And so we're now waiting back to hear from the funding sources on those. But usually what we found with the grants is it's mostly capital projects and infrastructure that it's funding, not operational costs.
Okay, thank you. And then just on the sheriff's on this one, and I know we have the general sheriff's one, are we still at a position where the sheriff's department, even though we're getting the hours we contract, are they still short about 30% in staffing?
I think that's probably the accurate number.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's part of why we as a council had a open space security and security for our properties as additional costs as well, right?
I think that was one of the reasons, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, with that, we're charged on minutes, so even though there's a reduction in deputies, we're still getting those contractual minutes.
Right.
But it's usually done through overtime or whatever that might be, and so.
And I believe, along with council security is most important, and public safety is one of the most important, if not the most important things we can do. If we can clone Deputy De Matteo about 5 times, I think our city will be gold. All right, 10 times. All right. Before I comment, and I'm going to go to most of the items on this list on page 15, to me, are items for safety, enjoyment, for the community and residents. And those are things that I think are not items that I normally would support reducing. I've been up here for years speaking how we can find new ways to do things, how we can find new events. And I realize staff's an issue. I realize money's an issue. Erica and her department have come up with some very new and exciting things, except for cornhole. Other than that, it's good. Joking. And so we're looking at a couple $1 million or $2.1 million, and then next year more. To me, a $15,000 item of a council reorg state of the city or pumpkin festival or concerts in the park are not the items that I am going to be looking at right away. That's me personally. I think they're important to the city. I think we used to have a lot more things in the city that we don't have for various reasons. The pandemic also reduced some things we have to provide for the community. I think that's part of our job in addition to fiscal responsibility to provide enough services, safety services, and community events for the community. So I'm big on that. I'm gonna say something which may not be popular with my colleagues, not the city, not the city manager of the year, but if I'm looking at a budget and reducing, I'm gonna look at the two largest expenses that we have, which are 11.7 million in personnel and 7 million, and I'm not even including insurance on the sheriff's contract, but those two items, and saying if there's a way to reduce, let's look at those areas. And as the city manager of the year, I challenge you to that task, as nice, unpleasant as that may be. And then I will also consider, because if that's what we need to do, then we will look at these items, and I will also consider, again, looking at these items and reducing a certain percentage. But I mean, again, a $15,000 item, again, it counts. It all adds up. We got rid of artwork here years ago. Some people were happy, some weren't. We used to have an art festival. We used to have a theater festival. We used to have a lot more things for the community that we don't anymore. So I would be hesitant to get rid of things that we do have that the community enjoys. We don't have 4th of July fireworks. That wasn't our city's fault, by the way. I will say that loud and clear. And it's great that we can still do something on the 4th of July, and hopefully we'll come up with something different and better for the community, whether it's 4th of July or another time. But I am challenging or asking Kendon, Ron, the Budget Committee to come up with an alternative to this page of items. I'll be happy to listen to my colleagues and discuss them later.
Councilmember Weintraub?
Here, let me pull up my notes that I went over with Kendon earlier. Okay. Well, first I have a few questions, and then can we go through the list? Let's see. Okay. I guess this is a question. We're looking for ways to increase our revenues, and one thing that I think we still need to consider is the raising of the TOT tax. So I want to make sure that the budget subcommittee can discuss that further. If we went up to 15%, we could generate approximately $660,000 in new revenues. Another thing, I want to really look at our contracts. This is an odd one, but I feel like with LA County Animal Services, they're not very responsive to the city, and our staff ends up doing a lot of the work. Can we get reimbursed or owe them less? I just want to make sure we're also looking at all of our contracts, making sure we're getting what we pay for. Also, let's see, when I was looking at concerts in the park for $60,000, I wanted to know if we've ever explored partnerships with local businesses. I don't know where Erica is. That's something I really want us to try to get creative in ways to bring in more revenue. I don't want to cut concerts in the park, but if we're looking to offset, receive some revenue, maybe there are businesses in the community who would be interested in sponsoring that. I support the cost allocation plan, but I want to make sure that staff is speaking to the individuals involved and that they have a clear understanding of how staff is allocated to their LMD and the costs, and that they really understand how that personnel is being allocated. I was looking at the Pumpkin Festival, and I was curious, like, if we've done any research, like, how much does the chili cook-off cost and other regional events, to see what, are they making more money, are they spending more money, but just, are there things that we can do? I mean, the Pumpkin Festival's beloved in the community and the greater area, but are there other things that we can do to decrease that cost? I have no interest in reducing the sheriff's contract, especially in this climate. At least multiple times a day, I receive calls and emails or text messages from residents, and it's always about public safety. It's like the most important thing that I hear from our community. I'm just going to go through this. Security for city facilities. I want to make sure I just want to make sure that that's working, I guess is the way to say that. So I guess that would be up for staff to determine, just making sure. The one thing I didn't see on anything were cameras at City Hall. Is that on any list?
We're actually working on an infrastructure project on that. We have been working with Allied and others to come together with a package that we would go out and do an RFP. And our thought with that is, I think, is maybe where you're going is the more cameras that we have, we might be able to reduce some of our contractual costs for security.
Right. And we need the cameras because sometimes, you know, someone will be in the back of City Hall and there's someone in the front, but if someone is monitoring the cameras, I just want us to get smarter with how we're spending our money. And I think that we could do that. And I also forgot to thank the budget subcommittee for, you guys have done so much work, and Ron and Kindon and Scott. But I just want to, when we're looking at things, really like dig deep with them. City match to employee 457, don't really have a comment. Rental voucher program, I don't think that it's the time to cut that. Pumpkin Festival, I addressed. Concerts in the park, I'm interested in knowing about sponsorship. Suspend commission video recordings, I would leave that to staff. I'm not sure how many people actually watch the commission recordings, so I don't think a lot of people.
Correct. The viewership is very low. We're less than 5 typically, but on average about 2 to 3. And I attribute those 2 to 3 views from staff going back to confirm minutes.
But we don't see if people are watching it like on their computers, right? Like on YouTube or
That is
live.
correct.
Yeah. So I've said it before that I think if we have like a big item that the commission is discussing, maybe then you record it. But discretionary funds, I mean, if we're going to cut a little, I'm not opposed to that. Open space security, again, I just want to make sure that we think that that's actually working. Council, commission, staff, holiday events, I'm sure there's a way to trim there. Employee tuition reimbursement, maybe we extend it for longer than 1 year. For the employee tuition reimbursement, you have to stay here 1 year, but I know a lot of companies, it's longer than that. Council reorg, state of the city, it's not a lot of money. Film festival, not a lot of money. Donation to the PFCs, I think that we need to have conversations with the PFCs, and that didn't take place. I know a lot of them like heard about this just by like word of mouth, and someone was looking for something else on our city website. So I think we need to have a conversation with them. Ron, when do we give the checks out?
We give them out at this time of year, usually in the
Right.
May, June timeframe.
Right, so I think they've already budgeted based on like our conversations last year, right?
Yeah, so As Ron mentioned, so we still haven't issued the checks for this fiscal year. Those are budgeted, and we're
Right.
not asking to change
Right.
that. So that 250,000 that would go out now would be used for the next academic year.
Right. So I think it's a conversation that we need to have with them. I think they should be a part of the conversation. I think that when we've met with them before, we've really stressed that the money needs to go to things that impact the larger community as well. And I especially think like Calabasas High School did that this year with how they allocated their funding. And I know a lot of the schools are planning to do that for next year. So I think it's a conversation that we have to have. I mean, if we have to trim, kind of what Ed was saying, if we have to trim a little bit from everything, minus sheriff, I don't want to touch public safety. I just, not in this climate, but I don't support like just straight cutting any of these things. And I want the stakeholders to be a part of the conversation just so they understand. And I think that, let me go through my, I think that covered, you answered a lot of my questions earlier. Okay.
Councilmember Bazagian?
Okay. I'm in favor of the cost allocation plan. As Ed indicated, it should have been done years ago because it really is unfair when there's shared costs that the other funds don't pay anything out of it. So totally on board with that. Going through this cost reduction, I'm not on the budget committee. There might have been other areas. I don't know. Is this it, Kendon? Is this the total amount you were looking at, or were there other areas that you considered and rejected, or?
No, I think the budget committee in their wisdom felt that was more of an appropriate conversation for the entire council. So again, we provided a much smaller list. We went back, added to that, but the budget committee in their forethought realized that that was something that required the 5 to discuss in its entirety.
Well, I would encourage the budget committee to maybe come up with some additional areas, to recommend if you have any after tomorrow's meeting. So going through this, the sheriff's contract, I know it looks like a lot, but I agree with Alicia, this is not the climate in which to reduce the sheriff's contract. And besides, I've gone through this many times, and when you try to start reducing hours, it's really not that easy to do. To make a big fiscal impact, you actually have to do a significant reduction. It's just not going to be very much. I don't know. I think it's going to be not worth it for the $300,000. I know it doesn't. It sounds like a lot of money, but I would not reduce it. The donation to PFCs, in the past, when we've had budgetary issues, and I think most recently it was during the COVID-19 pandemic, we didn't eliminate it. We reduced it. And I think that's appropriate to do here. I would favor reducing it. This is actually the one area that's not a city expenditure on a city thing. This is something for the schools. And I think before we tell our employees, hey, you're not going to get an increase in pay, or we're not going to provide the service to the residents on various things, fees are going to be higher, that we would at least ask the PFCs to take a little less money this year. And maybe it doesn't have to be permanent, but just until we have a little more clearance. Security for city facilities, it's not broken down, so I don't know what you would actually reduce. Is that hours of patrol? Is that all it would be, or is there equipment, or what is it?
I'll start out and I'll turn it over to Michael McConville if we need to. But so at the direction of council, we went out and increased our security. So it's now at about $200,000 per year. That starts, I want to say, about 7 a.m., Michael, and then
Correct.
goes till 11 p.m., correct? So it's, again, we could see a significant savings just by reducing the number of hours. Michael, did you want to add anything on that?
No, you're absolutely correct. So 16 hours per day, we staff one roaming security officer to touch not only the Calabasas Civic Center, but all city-owned facilities. So if there's a reduction in locations or hours, we could accommodate that.
See, I think for the one time or a couple times you may need them throughout the year, it's well worth it for public safety purposes. I wouldn't touch it, I don't think. I'd think about it, but I wouldn't necessarily touch it at this point. Do we have a log of what they have discovered out there, or what they've been, like, how many incidents there have been out there while they're there that they see? Did they stop somebody from setting a fire somewhere? Did they stop someone from assaulting somebody? I mean, what has happened?
So to answer your question, we do have a log, but I don't have that information with me tonight. I'm happy to do a deep dive and present that to either the budget committee or back to the council.
Well, maybe the budget committee could take a look at what they actually do and see how important it is to have them out at those various hours. Like, for example, if there's certain hours, like from 7 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock in the morning where nothing happens and there's no reported incidents, maybe we cut those hours out. I don't know. Okay, city match to employee 457. I know we have in the past suspended that. I'm not, as a former union president of a public sector union, I'm not going to be in favor of cutting out the 457 unless it's absolutely necessary. It's a good incentive for employees. It helps reward them for loyalty and staying with the city. If we were absolutely desperate, like we were at the time that we did it before, maybe we could do it. But I want to put that on the back burner as a really last resort, only if need be. The rental voucher program, similarly, we should never be cutting back and putting the financial burden on those least able to afford it. Many people cannot afford rent here, and they would not be able to live here if we did not provide that assistance. I would note, because I did ask Kendon when I saw this earlier, I think I asked you yesterday, this is only a part of what the program is. The rest of it's funded by various grant monies. So, but I still think it's important that we keep it.
Yeah, and I checked into that, Mayor Pro Tem. So just recently, we've allocated CDBG funds in the amount of about $50,000 to offset some of that. If I'm correct, Michael, that hasn't started yet, right? That's in process. There are some things that, as we've looked at this, contractually, we may be obligated to continue this program. Now, one thing that we could do, we could transfer some or all of this to our affordable housing fund. Now, the downside with that is you're now using ongoing expenses with one-time monies, but it could offset that even in a year
really
or two.
for that.
Yeah, I'm just saying it could. It's a a justifiable use of those funds. Meaning, if we wanted to say that 128,000, 50,000, or 75,000 could hit the affordable housing fund this year, and then we'd look at it again next year if we wanted to do that.
Bottom line is, I don't really favor cutting our portion of the rental voucher program. I think it's very well received and used. Pumpkin Festival. Okay, I'm a real fan of the Pumpkin Festival, but I was surprised to see this number of 112,000. I think that we really need to work on doing something to take the losses down a little bit. Maybe not a lot, but just a little bit. Maybe we charge more. I mean, these days to go to a fair of that type anywhere is going to be about double what we charge, a minimum. And people are used to paying that. So I don't think if you raise the tickets from $10 to $15, or if you charge for a few extra things inside, that probably would bring in a few $1,000s worth of revenue, several $1,000s, maybe tens of $1,000s. And I also don't, I know it was nice to have a smaller crowd, but I think, I remember one year we limited ticket sales or something. Maybe we don't do that. Maybe we just make it a little more crowded, and that way we take in more revenue. Community services, concerts in the park, I would reduce that. I don't think we need that many concerts for $60,000. If we can't get a sponsorship, then I would reduce it to 2 or 3 instead of 4. Public information. The idea I had on this was on the commission meetings to go back to what we did in the 1990s, which is we set up a little tripod in the back, and that's how it was recorded. It wasn't, and we could broadcast it. It didn't, you didn't have the moving camera or the panning in and out, but it is recorded, and anyone who wants to watch it can do that. We wouldn't have to set a tripod in the back, but we could certainly just set up a camera in there and not have a full staff dealing with that. Someone shuts it, puts it on, someone shuts it off, and that's it. So, I mean, I'm saying these are ways to make it still happen. Maybe it's not quite as nice, but if not that many people are watching it, it doesn't really matter. But I don't think we need to eliminate it. Also, Peter, I wanted to make the point that in addition to the Council and the Planning Commission, the Communications and Technology Commission has some final authority, and those always have to be recorded, video recorded. They do make decisions that are not, that are final, as do, I think, the Library Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission under the Government Code. But I'll defer to the city attorney. Maybe she can research that, because I know there are obscure points in the law.
I can certainly do additional research on that, but going offhand, there is no requirement under the Brown Act to record the meetings for the sake of recording them for the purposes of final decision-making. But to the extent that there is any Zoom or remote appearances, obviously that would need to be recorded. But so long as the minutes accurately reflect whatever action has taken place, and if there's an audio recording, a lot of cities do save money with audio recordings and potential transcripts if they're necessary for appeal purposes, but video recording is certainly not necessary.
Well, I was not necessarily saying legally, but in other words, if it's legally the case that they are making final decisions on items, then I think those should be recorded by video, because there are going to be public hearings that people may participate in and have some significance. City Council discretionary funds, you know, I don't want to cut these, but if we're going to keep the process whereby we allow City Council general funds to be used for when we represent the city, like at the League or contract cities or SCAG, then I think that might be okay to say bring it back down to 5,000, because I think it went from 5 to 6 one year. I mean, if it went back to 5, okay, but if it's less than 5, it's going to be hard for some of us to participate in these events. That's my input. Open space security. I'm not sure what that was, Kendon. What is that?
So we have contracted with Covered 6, and primarily, it's changed over time with this contract, but primarily what their activities are now are drone flights, and they're not every day. It's a few days each week, scattered throughout the month, and it's been difficult for us as staff to determine how much of a crime deterrent that really is. There might be some benefits, but I don't know if there's, we're not able to create a clear nexus that it's deterring any crime. And so that's one of the reasons that's on that list.
So this is not a person, this is going to be a drone out there? Or is it a person operating the drone?
Person
too?
operating the drone.
Okay,
correct.
well, if it's $28,000, I mean, honestly, if it's deterring one residential burglary, that might be worth it, especially the person being burglarized. So I would say it's such a small amount, unless it's a total waste, I would keep it. Council, commission, staff, holiday events, there should be a way to make it less. $25,000 is an awful lot of money. It's not the $50,000 that was spent one year, but it's a lot of money. Employee tuition reimbursement, I'm not, is this all being, what is being left? Is this just a cut of part of the program or all of it?
This is the total dollar amount for the entire year.
Is it used, or does it usually revert back?
It's used, and no, the staffs, for the most part, they stay. We hardly get any staff that leave within a year of taking the class.
If we needed to reduce further, like if it was necessary, I put this in the category of the 457. I'm willing to consider it, but it shouldn't be on the front line. Reorganization, the state of the city should be downplayed, in my opinion. In the past, we've spent a lot of money on those events, and it doesn't serve, I mean, it's nice, it's a ceremony. Other cities don't spend that much on it, and they do just fine. And finally, the film festival. The problem with reducing the film festival is if you reduce it or get rid of this 15,000, I mean, they may not be able to do it. So that's a consideration. And I think 15,000 is a reasonable amount for an arts event like that. So those are my thoughts. Sorry for taking so much time.
All right, so I'll jump in with a few thoughts here then. First of all, I want to thank everybody for their comments this evening, starting with Councilmember Albrecht. It's going to take a little bit of cut in a lot of places. Just like our football analogy, a couple of inches and eventually you get 100 yards out of it, right? As far as a cost allocation plan, I'm in favor of that. I think it's well put together. We did have some homework questions for Mr. Allers, but we'll discuss those more in depth at the Budget Committee meeting. I think it's important to note that some of our contracts, a lot of our contracts in the presentation that was up earlier, they pay for themselves. So for example, our largest contract was with M6 Consulting for $939,000. Just a note for the public, we cannot charge more for a building permit than the cost of providing that service. We can't make money at that. So the fact that our building permits match this number means it's a break-even event, and even if we could do it in-house and do it cheaper, we actually can't do it cheaper because then we'd be making a profit off of a building permit. So there's a lot of these items here in our contractual services that fall under either that category, or perhaps they're in there because an outside service can do it less expensive than our city staff could. I think one of the examples that was up on the screen earlier was the emergency services for storm cleaning. We can't maintain a staff large enough to handle the next hurricane and have them sit around waiting for the next hurricane. It doesn't work that way. So there's a lot of these contractual services that I think are fixed and are a good use. But I also think it's important that we take a look at this list. Perhaps at the Budget Committee we can discuss them in a little bit more depth and find areas that maybe there are some things that we can do in-house, but maybe not. Again, I think it's worth looking at. We need to close a gap of $2.096 million. The cost allocation plan will get us $1.622. That leaves us with $474,000 in either cuts or spending of the available money that's in our general fund reserves. I'm in favor of cutting. My cuts would fall along the lines of what's been discussed here this evening with a few differences. First of all, the similarities, I would say, if it has to do with a benefit for our staff, I would not cut it. The simple reason is we occasionally lose staff that go find a job somewhere else, whether it's closer to home or maybe they found a place with more money and better benefits. We need to be competitive in the marketplace. We need to stay there. So I don't want to see any cuts to that. When it comes to holiday events and holiday parties, you know, I think, in my experience, that a staff that gets along with each other, that has fun together, that mingles with one another, they work so much more effectively. So I'm in favor of these sort of things like our staff holiday events, and I don't want to see any cuts there either. The commission holiday event, however, could be merged with our council event. I mean, our larger event, our holiday party, commissioners are invited to there. I'd like to see them participate with the larger group more, and I don't see a need for any smaller commission holiday events. So if there's any money that's being spent on individual events in that area, I would encourage those monies to be taken out and the commissioners to be encouraged to participate with the larger group. As was mentioned, a lot of little cuts in areas. I think it's interesting as we look at this cost reduction list here that the numbers on the right-hand column are 100% of the money that we spend on each of those categories except for the sheriff's contract. To be true to form, the sheriff's contract, the first line item should be $6 million, and what we're proposing there is a 5% cut in it. I'm not a fan of cutting anything to do with safety and security either. However, the emergency response from our sheriff's contract, I don't believe would be affected. The patrols would be. And what we're faced with right now is a lot of open space burglaries. I mean, that's all we ever talk about here, with very few retail crimes or issues on our streets. And so I think we could handle a reduction in the sheriff's contract of 5%, maybe a little bit less than that. With the donation to the PFCs, again, I think it was said, I wouldn't cut all of it, but I think it might be time to reduce it. Our PFCs are healthy right now. Our school district is healthy. They have a recent bond measure. The PFCs have a healthy balance. They would still be getting their checks in the next few weeks or whenever the checks are going out from the last budget fiscal year, so they would have time to plan ahead. But I think we could probably cut $100,000 out of there. I would also be in favor of cutting a little bit out of everywhere. And when it comes to the discretionary funds from the council as well, I would say that we need to do that. We need to cut $5,000 out and get back to our $5,000 discretionary fund before. And I'll just say this publicly: if any council member still needs additional funds beyond it, they can have mine. Because I think we all need to find a place to cut, and we need to lead by example here. The commission video recording, absolutely, that's a great place to cut. I think it's watched by only a couple of people. So to spend tens of thousands of dollars for the viewing enjoyment of 2 people in a city of 25,000 just doesn't add up. So a lot of great areas to cut. I think it's been mentioned by my fellow council members as well. Let's take a look at ticket prices and participation in our events, like the Pumpkin Festival. I mean, $112,000 deficit is a big deficit, and I think we can make up a lot of that by raising ticket prices, by getting bigger sponsors, by charging more for the food truck parking spot, by whatever else we have to do. The concerts in the park, again, I love the concerts in the park. We had 3, we went up to 4. I think if we went back to 3, it probably wouldn't be noticed, and that would be a $15,000 save. If we're $60,000 for the 4 of them, it'd be $15,000 apiece. I'm just talking in round numbers here, but I think these are areas that we should explore. Once the general fund is balanced, my suggestions, I want to continue on with, we need to continue to transfer money to PERS into our OPEB savings accounts. The recommendation is $400,000 to PERS and $100,000 to OPEB, and I would strongly support that. I know we have a lot of capital projects on here, but I'm going to ask that we hold on them. And just to clarify that with my fellow council members, 2 things. One, the Tennis and Swim study, this Tennis and Swim Center, we asked for a study for that a while back to look at the fees that are paid by the users and the cost of actually running the facility. And I think we're out of balance there. And I know it's going to hurt to raise the fees for swim and tennis center membership, but we've got a waiting list a mile long. I think it's 5 years now. Is that about right? So with a 5-year waiting list to get into an all-exclusive club, and the city of Calabasas is subsidizing it, I don't think that's the right use of taxpayer money. So I need that. I need to ask our staff to get that study done ASAP. We need that. We need that now, and we need that as a tool so that we can really look at those fees and raise them. And for those that want to hang on to their membership, I'm sorry about the additional fee. If we lose some people because of it, we've got a 5-year waiting list of people to fill it. I don't think that we're going to lose money in doing so. Sometimes when you raise ticket prices, we lose attendees, and then the overall revenue comes down, but I don't think that's going to be the case in a facility with a 5-year waiting list. The second one that I want to point out as far as capital projects go is we had looked at a project with SiteLogic a while back, and their proposal was to install solar in a lot of our city facilities. With the solar installed, the savings would be in the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars annually in electrical utility savings. And this program would have allowed us to use that 30 years worth of savings to pay for the installation of the solar panels, and with the pocket change left over, upgrade our HVAC, our roof, and even this electrical panel that we're still stuck with today. Unfortunately, we had asked to get a second opinion on that proposal. The numbers didn't quite pencil out, and so we were supposed to be going out to bid with that. It's been a while. I need to ask our staff. Let's get the Cummings Group to prepare an RFP and get that out ASAP. I think that's the best project we could be doing. It would make our city green, it would save us electrical utility costs, and it would pay for a lot of these capital projects. I strongly suggest that we do not engage in these capital projects until that RFP is out and answered. There may be things that when the RFP comes back, that the consultants say, or the providers say, we can't get it done for the next year or two, and we might need to pay for some of those capital projects in an emergency, but let's wait and see. Let's get that project together first. So with that, I would agree that we would not want to spend down the available money that's in our above the 50% of the general fund, but my suggestion would be to move it out of the general fund and into the deferred maintenance fund where it belongs. By moving the money that's above the 50% out of the general fund, we aren't tempted to use that money on things like donuts. Instead, we know and recognize the second half of this presentation tonight, which is that we have millions and millions of capital improvements that are going to be needed over the next 20 years, and we need to start saving for them now. So we have a big gap here. We need to close the gap for the general fund. We need to start working on the gap for our long-term planning. I like the idea of the TOT raising that. That's something we should explore at the Budget Committee. That could help. I don't think we should use it to close the budget this year. I think we should look at doing that and use that as our surprise by the end of the year instead. I think we can still look at our healthy cuts and get it done, and then the TOT will just set us on the right path for next year. That is about all that I had. Now, I did note that Councilmember Shapiro didn't quite go through his notes on the cuts. So without taking too long, I'm going to give you a second bite of the apple here.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. And great comments by everyone. I will just follow up and say, as far as the Tennis and Swim Center and potential increase, or at least an evaluation we'll get back, I can't wait for that. And solar, we worked on for years, and I support that as well. Won't discuss the potential, or I will say I'm not necessarily certain about reducing the general fund reserves to 50%, but certainly worth discussing. Going through this, going back to the discussion I made, I was never talking about reducing staff. I want to be very clear of that. Just talking about 1 to 2% possible on whether it's supply, whatever it might be in departments that you could look at. 1 to 1.5% was what I was referring to. And the same with regard to reduction of deputy service hours. I'm not supportive of cutting any services as far as public safety goes, but if our city manager and our, in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department, feels that will not affect the public safety of our city, I would be certainly supportive of considering that as well. Donation to the PFCs, I am supportive of those. I would be willing to look at it. I'd like to hear from the PFCs, though, because while I believe a couple of the schools may be in better situations than others, I don't believe they are all in overflowing with wealth, but certainly want to hear from them, and I'd be willing to look at it. But I also, my belief with regard to those is, at this point, and especially looking forward, once a reduction, whatever that minimal or amount may be, is done, we are not going to go back up to this number. I truly believe that. As far as security with city facilities, I'd like to see us have, and I thought we did, more cameras and possibly monitor the city facilities. Again, public safety, very important, but we could also give some kind of small increase to Michael and Scott for their work in that regard, keeping our public, our city hall safe from various instances I know of. But again, I'd like to see how that program has worked, as other council members have said, but cameras and monitors might be a much less expensive way to do that. Don't want to touch the city employees 457 or the rental voucher program. Pumpkin Festival and concerts in the park, I don't really want to reduce. I'd like to see, as has been mentioned, some type of potential partnership. I know we do a partnership of some kind with the Chamber or Rotary for the beer garden at the Pumpkin Festival. There must be a way, and if tickets become an issue, fine. As far as concerts in the park, I know I believe we could get a partnership there. If not, if the majority of council wants to reduce it from 4 to 3, I would not be opposed to that, but again, I hate to reduce things for the community. Suspend the commission video recording. What is the cost of everything else except planning and city council to record, if we know? Approximately.
So that number right there is the 50,000. So that cost is we would continue to video record council and planning commission and not do a recording of the others. And so that cost represents not only Trepepe Smith's time, but the overtime and other staff time for IT, some of our other staff that are here on site running those meetings.
Okay, I'd be willing to support that then, or a majority of the council, what they wish to do as well, but I have no problem with that. Discretionary funds, I'm agreeable to what I've heard, which is reducing from, if we're needing to cut, from 6 to 5 or whatever the number is. And the rest of the items are de minimis. They really aren't major and aren't going to have a major effect. So I'm not going to touch on those now. Thank you.
Comment?
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate my opposition to reducing the deputy service hours. I honestly think that even reducing it by a few hours can have a significant impact, and there still are retail thefts, and I think the patrol, although there still are many open space burglaries, there's been a slew of some recently that are not open space, so I think that the patrol hours are even more important right now. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
Okay,
can I ask a
before we do, I'm going to go to my other two council members. Councilmember Albert, did you have any other follow-up comments? You don't need to, but just giving you the opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's very tough on public safety, and it's with a heavy heart. I want to look at it, but maybe we can massage it in some way. I like the idea that we're trying to help the open space, but are we really being effective? So maybe we can reposition it somewhere, and as a result of repositioning it in some form, I'd like to discuss it with the sheriff and see if we can focus and concentrate in other areas better than we are now, and consequently potentially save some money.
Mayor Pro Tem, any final
Yes,
comments?
I did, and I forgot to mention it the first time. When Alicia said the transient occupancy tax, the TOT, I'm in total agreement. I've been pushing this for a while, and I realize in the past it's been rejected because it doesn't make as much money as some other tax revenue, but I believe the estimate was going to be something that would have been equivalent to all these cuts.
It was 600,000.
Yeah, well, it was like 400,000 or 500,000, wasn't it?
So, yeah, we're currently at 12% for our transient occupancy tax. So for every percent that it increases is about 225,000. So that's where the number 660 is coming from. So if you increase it from 12 to 15%, which is probably the cap that we would go here in our area, no other cities in the adjacent area are going beyond that, we could bring in an additional 660,000.
These are really popular because residents don't actually pay for this. It's all coming from outside, and these tend to pass. I don't know if I would say 3%. We would have to maybe poll and see what the public would accept. The other thing I wish to point out on this one is that the city of Los Angeles has enacted recently a number of regulations on hotels that are going to require them to raise fees. I mean, I think, wasn't there like a huge increase in the minimum wage just for hotel workers?
$30.
$30?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's going to be passed along to people. So if we have a little tiny increase in the transient occupancy tax, that's nothing compared to what they're going to pay in the adjacent large city. And the only other option they have if they need to stay like in San Fernando Valley is to come out farther west and stay here. So I think it's a golden opportunity for us to raise the TOT.
Yeah, and we'll come back and talk about all of the revenue generating options in more detail. Just as a reminder, a TOT has to be approved by the voters.
Yes.
So that couldn't happen until 2026, November of 2026.
Or the primary.
And then Pam, on that, is it like sales tax where we don't see it usually until the April thereafter, or is TOT, Ron, do you know, is it more immediate?
Yeah, it's immediate because we don't have to work through the state. We are the collecting agency. So it can.
We could see it as early as December, January.
Yep.
Okay.
You could put it on the primary ballot too.
No, it has to be a council election.
Oh, it has to be a council election?
Right, it's a general election.
Interesting, I wasn't aware of
It's
that.
part of the general municipal election, typically for these taxes.
Okay, well, so that's the answer.
Can
I'd like to consider it before too much time passes.
Can I ask one more question for the budget subcommittee?
Of
or
course.
For staff? Can you present to us what you think is a capital improvement that has to take place? Like, what is the most important thing? That if we don't do it, it's gonna end up costing us more, or we're gonna have to potentially like close a facility for the duration when the improvement would have to take place? I just wanna make sure that we're really addressing the long-term health of the community. So, like, if we have to make more cuts to be like responsible, I'd rather do that. I don't want us to be in the situation where things are breaking down and we're having to shut things down and we don't want our city to look old and become old. So I would just ask that information comes back to us. What's the most important thing that we really should be doing?
All right, Councilmember Shapiro, did you have another? No, that's it. Okay, I think we've had a very healthy discussion. I think our council has been very clear in the areas we want to explore. Ron, would you and your staff have a chance to review the tape and provide notes before our 2 o'clock budget meeting tomorrow? I hate to put that on you, but we do have a budget meeting at 2 o'clock tomorrow.
That we do.
So we do need to take action and discuss this, and I'd really like a fair summary of what you've heard here, because I think we're all similar but different, and our budget committee needs to act on the orders of the 5 council members.
Yeah, we'll put together a summary of what was discussed.
Okay. Okay, with that, so I have here in our script, is there a motion? But City Clerk, do we need to, we don't need a motion on this? Okay. So then we're moving on to verbal reports. Does the council have anything to report? Councilmember Shapiro? Ed doesn't like it when I start with him. I'm going to make you go
I have
last.
all Valley Economic Alliance, SCAG, other meetings, which I'll report on June 11th if we have time.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
League of California Cities General Membership Meeting is next Thursday, and that's going to be at USC. And
Okay.
I think the mayor and I are attending.
Councilmember Weintraub?
Nothing right now.
And I have nothing to report this evening either. City Manager, do you have anything? City Manager of the Year, do you have anything to report?
Nothing at this time. I do want to say thank you to all of our employees that stayed throughout the meeting. I know that It shows, again, they're vested in the decision-making process. They care and they want to do what's right. So thank you for being here tonight.
Yes, thank you all for attending. It's been a fantastic meeting, and we will have our Budget Committee meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock for anybody else who wants to join. Thank you, staff, for all being here this evening, and we are now adjourned till the next regular meeting of the City Council, which will be held on June 11th, 2025.